Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. This should be a nice short live session. And before I get to questions that pop up, and my goal is to answer every question you guys come up with, I'm going to be making a video soon on how to run a business. And it's going to have some graphics, so it might make a little more sense than what I talk about tonight. But what I'm going to be sharing is not only how I've grown a 6-figure side hustle in real estate with rental properties, but I'm going to be sharing how I grew a truck driving school from 6 staff to 60 with 1 location to now 5. Because businesses basically run the same. And when you have real estate properties, when you have rentals, that's a business. And Michael Zuber and I always say, we don't see ourselves as entrepreneurs. We're more investors. So my goal when buying rental properties isn't to create another job. And so when I cover how a rental property business runs, the systems that I talk about are going to explain how with 16 rental units, it takes me about 2 hours a month to self-manage. When I have a course, this video is going to be in it. I'm actually going to make a version of this video for the 1 rental at a time course, so it'll be in there as well. Amazon has a tenet when it comes to running a business. And I hear this from Justin Cambra, who runs a mastermind group for Amazon on real estate investing. But Amazon's principle is start with the customer first. So when we're looking at a business, and my idea when I make this video is that you'll never be able to look at a business the same again. No matter what business you're looking at. It could be a dentist office, a lawn care company, a YouTube channel. No matter what business you look at, it will fit into this model. And this is actually training I do with the leadership and staff at my trucking company, at my truck school. And it actually helps them understand how that business works. And as an investor, if you can get this business model in your mind to where it's just second nature to see the world this way, your business will run a lot smoother. The idea is when you start with the customer in mind, running a business, you can't have everyone on the planet be your customer. Even Amazon doesn't reach everybody. So you start with all of the humans on the planet. In real estate, you can't buy the whole earth, right? You can only buy so much of it, but you start with the whole planet as your goal. So as a truck driving school, people are our customers. In real estate, the properties that we can buy are going to be our clients, basically. So you start with the whole planet. And then you cycle down. The first thing you do when you're building a business is you start with a funnel. And some businesses will have funnels internal to their systems, but most businesses will have this structure where you have a funnel. And for truck driving school, it goes like this. We can't train people in other continents, so we look at our continent, to our country, to our state, to our county, to people close enough to they can actually find us. So we're not running Google ads in Russia, and we're not running Google ads in other states. We're running a geofencing Google ads system where we're located. So our money is being spent on advertising to impact the people that could actually use our services. Real estate is the same way. I don't have auto searches set up in Russia. So planet, continent, country, state, county, maybe zip code, dial it down to you're funneling down to the properties you're going to look at. And it doesn't have to be where you live. You could be funneling down to an out of state area that you're going to be investing in. So the first thing you do is you funnel down to the area, and then you're going to have a filter. So the first step with a business is to funnel down to who you're going to service. Second, you need to filter out the people you can't service. An example with the truck driving school is if somebody walks in the door and says, I lost my job last night because I just got a DUI and I need to have a career change. This is not the time to get a CDL. So we're going to send them to our nonprofit and help them find a different job. In real estate investing, you've narrowed it down to your area, right? So you've cycled all the way down to the area that you're going to search, whether that's your town or your zip code. In that area, I invest in residential properties, 4 units or less, because I like 30-year fixed rate debt. So I filtered out commercial properties, 5 units or more. I filtered out storage facilities. My strategy is designed around being lazy. I like to buy rent-ready or already occupied properties. So my original search for properties is not for properties that need a lot of work. So I'm not doing the BRRRR method. I'm not looking to buy it, do a rehab, rent it out, refinance. I'm looking to buy a property that already has somebody in it, so I don't have to do a lot of work. So I'm looking for properties in a price range. So you talk to a lender to find out how much you can borrow. That tells you the amount your search should be up to. And a tip with searching is I always set it above what I can borrow. So if I was able to borrow $500,000, I would have my auto search set up for $550,000. Right now it's a seller's market and things are on and off the market quick. So you don't really have a chance to do this, but eventually the pendulum will swing back to a buyer's market and things will sit on the market longer. And you might have the opportunity to make an under asking offer and get it accepted. So that's why my search is set up for a little bit more than I can borrow. But I funneled down to my area. I filtered out the types of properties I don't want to invest in. So knowing what you're looking for is key. So you can set up your auto searches for the types of property that you know you're going to be wanting to make offers on. Once you've filtered down to that point, so right now, everything I've talked about running a business, we haven't signed up a customer, we haven't bought a rental yet. All of that work happens before you convert somebody from a potential to a customer. So somebody walking in the door of the truck driving school to get information is a potential client. Your auto searches show you a lot of properties in your area that are probably terrible deals because the sellers want too much, or that needs too much work for what I do, or some other reason why you won't want it. So you're going to filter out before you try to convert it. So from the funnel to your business systems, you have a conversion point. This is where they become your properties. And so after this point, once you have funneled down and filtered out the properties you don't want, you make the offers on the ones that you do. When you get an offer accepted, these order of operations are kind of standard. And I have a video on this channel called Buying a Rental Property Start to Finish. So you have the offer accepted, you have an inspection period. I go look at the property. I decide if I want to keep it or not. That's when I actually make the decision if I want to buy it or not. If I do, then I schedule the inspection. You have a 10-day window. You can shorten to 5 if you want to. Some people waive inspections to make their offer look more attractive, but I don't like that because I haven't even decided if I want the property when I make the offer. I decide if I want it or not when I get to go look at the property. So that's what my inspection period is for. Having the inspector go isn't always going to tell me to continue on with the deal or not. It's going to give me a negotiating tool. They're going to point out all the flaws in the property that I can send back to the seller and say, I either want you to fix this list of things or take this much money off the price. So far, every time the price has been reduced because people are trying to sell to get out of the property. They don't want to do a bunch of work to it just to get rid of it. So after that, you schedule an appraisal. And this is a really weird time because you are hoping that a trained professional will tell you that the property is expensive enough for you to buy. Because in order to qualify for lending, the bank has to be told that the property has enough value based on your offer. After the appraisal comes back, you go and you sign closing documents, and now this becomes your property. After this conversion point, you need systems in place. Running a truck driving school, if I was advertising, enrolling students, training students, doing classroom, doing simulation training, doing field training, then doing job placement, I could handle 3 or 4 students a month. That would be my bandwidth. But since I have office staff and classroom instructors and simulation training and field training instructors, when I sign up students or when I advertise to sign up more students and I grow the company, it doesn't add to my workload. When I add a rental property to my portfolio, it doesn't add to my workload because I have these systems in place. And when I make the video, it will have a lot of detail into how these systems work. But it's small things like I have 2 handymen. In case one's busy, I can get a hold of the other. I set expectations with tenants early on. I tell them how I like to communicate, what constitutes an emergency and what constitutes calling the handyman or sending me an email for something I can handle at a later date. I should only get a call in the middle of the night for water or fire or serious injury. And if it's going to be a phone call, it should be a text because I don't hardly ever answer my phone. So I set those expectations early with strong leases. When you buy a property, if there are tenants that are already there, you are bound by the existing leases, so you can't make changes to the leases right away. If they're month to month, it's a little easier. If you're on my channel, you've probably heard of my binder strategy where I get the tenants to request a rent increase. I don't do those right away. I wait a period of time because I didn't get to screen those tenants. I want to wait a few months to make sure they pay the rent on time. They don't call me for really trivial things. I don't get a lot of noise complaints from the neighbors. Make sure that they're tenants that I want to keep, because I didn't get to check their credit score or eviction status or even get to meet them before they were already in the property. I use the Thumbtack app to find contractors, read reviews, get quotes. So that's a simple system for doing repairs and maintenance on these properties. I have a preferred way of being paid or collecting my rents. And so these are all systems. Every month, this is how the rents are going to work. All of my bills are automated, so I'm not physically writing checks or making payments whenever possible, to where it's very simple to collect those rents. I use automated ways that don't take me going to the bank, that leave an electronic paper trail. So we've funneled down, filtered out, converted the ones that we wanted. We have systems to operate them so that we're motivated to want to grow our business. Every time I add a rental property to my portfolio, it increases my cash flow. With 16 rental units, it takes me about 2 hours a month to manage those properties. My goal is to keep it as close to 2 hours as possible. If the portfolio gets too big, or I decide that even 2 hours is too much, I can eventually hire a property manager. And for a period of time, I would be managing the property manager. So it's not like it's going to eliminate those 2 hours every month. It's just going to change the type of work that I'm doing until that property manager knows my systems. To get these systems and to get these searches set up, you need to know your exit strategy. If you're doing a flip, you're going to look for a specific type of property that needs work. If you're doing the BRRRR, you're going to look for certain properties that need work. If you're doing wholesaling, you're looking for properties where you can make a profit when you sell it to the next person. I do buy and hold real estate investing. My goal is to hold the properties until I die, which means my exit strategy is putting the properties in a trust so that my heirs don't have to pay a massive tax, depending on what happens with the stepped up tax system, because people always talk about that going away. Basically, that resets the value of the property when they inherit it, because of the depreciation that's happened and appreciation, so that they don't have to pay a huge capital gains tax when they get the properties. That's my exit strategy. So if you know your exit strategy, you can work your way backwards to know what your systems are going to be, because flipping strategies are very different than buy and hold strategies. My goal is to not need to do a rehab, and a flipper is going to want to be able to add value to the property. You can set your searches up better if you know what your end goals are. If your end goal is to own storage facilities because you don't want to deal with actual living tenants on the property, then you're going to look for a different type of property. If you're going to invest at a distance, you know what areas to look for. So that's basically how a business works, from looking at the whole planet down to the things that you're going to go for and how you're going to exit the program. When I make that video, I'll put it on this channel, and like I said, it's going to have a lot more detail. It's going to be kind of a serious video because it's instruction format, kind of the way I teach the staff at my school. And since it's so serious, at the end of that video, I am going to do something silly. I can't talk about it here because I don't know who's watching, but I will do it in that video. So now I'm going to go to the comments and see if there's any questions that have popped up tonight. Last night during the BiggerPockets boot camp, I was reviewing a property because it was the week during the training where we learn how to choose a market. And so I was going through the steps of how I look at a deal, what its cash flow would be, how I find out the area average rents, how I look at what my yield is going to be. And I just randomly opened up an email from one of my agents to just walk through an actual deal. And I look at over 80 before I find some that I want to make offers on. And ironically, the one we looked at had almost a 20% cash on cash return, was in the area that I like. It's next to the economic drivers. The only drawback was it was an over under. It wasn't side by side like the properties that I prefer to buy. It was an over under. So it's going to be a little bit confusing, and I need to explain it to that boot camp cohort next week as to why. Because on our live Zoom call, I texted my agent and I said, I want to make this offer on this property, this down payment, not owner occupied, conventional lending with this much earnest money. But in that course, I'm teaching, this is my criteria. I want side-by-side units because tenants above or below each other have more noise complaints. I want 2 or more bedrooms for each unit and a garage because more storage space equals more stuff, so less likely to move. And then I made an offer on a property that didn't meet my criteria. And the idea is all of the criteria together as a whole is a wish list. Like I want all of those things there. But if it was single bedroom, but because it was close to something like a college or a hospital where I can do rent by the room, or traveling nurses, or to a college student, and my yield might be high enough, then I wouldn't want the 2 bedrooms or garage. I would want the single bedroom. In this case, the yield based on the price of the property, which means my offer, since I went at asking price, is probably going to get outbid. I might look again at it and make an over asking offer when I really run the numbers. My criteria for the yield was so high that I can overlook something like it not having side-by-side units that I like. So here we go to the chat. Hi, Janet. Some questions for me. Good. I have some answers. Don. Hi, Don. When are you going to have a course? The idea for me is that my YouTube channel is set up like a course. What I probably need to do is make a playlist that is a course. Before buying a rental, what do you do? The 6 steps to getting started in real estate. How to set rents in a hot market, how to screen tenants, those videos in a row, maybe not the deal deep delves and maybe not the Three Amigos stuff, but those are actually 10-minute, in my opinion, courses. The reason I haven't made a course is because I think I would feel horrible if I charged money to have people get the information I'm giving out for free. It makes sense for Michael Zuber because he has over 5,000 videos on his channel and he does live streams every day with multiple multimillionaires. And so to get the filter down, these are the videos specifically that would that you can grow your business with. That makes sense to have that course. The reason I made this YouTube channel was to answer those specific questions. So I'm not sure if I will ever have a course. I think my chronology goes grow this content as much as possible, answer questions, and I appreciate questions because sometimes they point out videos I need to make. A book, and the book will be, it's outlined. It's basically my story of where I'm at now, why you want to know what I know. The cheat code to wealth, how a lazy person can reach financial freedom. And then it'll be mindset chapters, how to invest in real estate without spending money. That's one of my favorite videos. How I wish I had more debt, those kind of mindset videos, but broken down into chapters. And then there will be the chapters on like the binder method, how to get a tenant to request a rent increase. Because not everybody watches videos. Some people will learn better from reading. I would like to be your student. I think everybody that watches this is my student because I share my email and my contact info, and I'm happy to help anytime that I can. Jeremy, hey. Excited to hear what is going on and customer needs strategies. On some customer needs strategies. Maybe you can explain that for me, Jeremy, on the customer needs. So what is going on? I'm hunting for $1 million property. I want to put my money where my mouth is. I've said several times that while I'm investing that I wish my properties cost more, as long as the yield scaled with it. Because when I first started investing, I was looking for properties I could afford instead of the properties I should have been going for. And my last couple of properties cost more than what I was used to. Interest rates have come down, rents have gone up, so the yield scales better. So my goal now is to take my down payment that I'm saving up, do a cash out refinance on my paid off house, put that money together, use it as a down payment on probably a fourplex that costs more than $1 million. As long as I can find one that gets me the yield I'm looking for. That's what's going on with me. And I'm also editing our deal deep delve, which should be coming out end of the week that we did together. Tiffany, howdy, good evening. Valiant Thor, watching from Los Angeles, National Labor. Nice. Nice. That's right next to, they have the White Buffalo next to there, don't they? I think I've been there a few times. Rob, for 20%, I'd take the over under also. Yeah. Howdy, Majid. How do you increase rent for Section 8 tenant? You contact housing authority or just... So first you have to talk to the tenant and not have to, but my strategy is talk to the tenant first to make sure that they're aware you're going to be doing a rent increase. I use a version of the binder strategy. There's a video on my channel on Section 8, how to make more money. I contact the housing authority. I do the work for them. They are public servants, and they can only agree to rents that they can justify to their boss. So I will find comparable rented units in the area and send those, the links and everything, to the housing authority and say, I'm adjusting the rent for the current tenant. This is going to be the new rent. This email counts as my notification of rent increase, because in Washington State, we have to give 60 days notice to increase the rent. You have to give 20 days notice to tell somebody you're not renewing the lease, but 60 days to do a rent increase outside of Seattle. In Seattle, you have to give 6 months notice. And if it's more than 10% and the tenant doesn't want to do it, you have to pay to relocate the tenant. So I don't invest in Seattle. But with Section 8, if you can justify the rent increase by showing them what the area averages are, because that's what Section 8 pays. And in years like this, rents are increasing faster than normal. I actually just did this about a month ago. Sent a letter off to the housing authority and the tenant, so that the housing authority knows the tenant was notified on the same day that I'm setting the rent up the area average. I've sent several examples that are at $2,400-$2,500. I'm raising the rent to $2,200 because it's at $18 right now. Significant jump, not quite to the area average. So the housing authority came back with no problem. They were paying $18 was the max they would pay. And if you contact them, that's what they say they'll pay. But when I showed them, this is what the area averages are for the same number of bedrooms in the same area, because Section 8 cares about bedroom count. They don't care about square footage. They don't care about square footage. They don't care about garages. They don't care about swimming pools or anything like that. How many bedrooms do you have? This is what we'll pay. So I increased the rent with the Section 8, basically like I would with a tenant, except it wasn't a face-to-face conversation. It was done through emails. Jeremy, did you ever consider buying an entire portfolio? Today I locked down 6 doors. You have a specific criteria, but if it was your housing type and at a discount, I don't know that it would need a discount. I would look at a whole portfolio if I had. That's where seller financing is probably great, because I wouldn't have the down payment probably. But if you're looking at a portfolio, if you could do seller financing, I would do it. If I could work out lending and figure out a way to do it with 30-year fixed rate debt, I mean, it might be a mortgage on each property or however the lender would want to structure it. I would look at whole portfolios. So yes, when I'm contacting sellers, I usually ask, do you have anything else for sale? I bought a duplex 2018 and almost bought the one across the street from the same seller. They were listing it. I had like $10,000 or $15,000 less than I needed for the down payment. And at that point, I wasn't pursuing seller financing as much. So I don't know what could have happened. But I didn't get that duplex. And I still regret it, because my duplex in that area has almost doubled in value and the rents have gone up almost double. So had I got that, it would have been a great deal. But sometimes timing is just wrong. Cesario, howdy. I know some here at 1 million if you need property manager. There you go. And so it's not that I want to buy $1 million property. It's I want to buy $1 million property that gets me at least a 10% yield. So if I invest $250,000, some of that's going to be from the refinance. Some is money I've saved up. I'm giving myself a $25,000 a year raise, because I'm going to get at least a 10% return. So if those $1 million properties look like that in your area, let me know. But for now, I'm looking in Pierce and Thurston County in Washington State. Ninja vanish. Dion, when will the new book be ready for Audible? So this week I'm in Idaho. I don't know if you saw on Facebook today, but I was actually out on a ladder painting a sign. We're putting a campus in. Next week I'm back in Washington, and I'm going to commit the time it takes to record. So a week or two, it should be done recording, and then however long Audible takes. The sooner the better. I think I missed this here. Sorry, the chat moves and then my screen is really small. Roll on. Good evening. Have you ever considered trademark your binder strategy as intellectual property? Kind of. I've thought about it. I definitely am going to trademark it if it's in the book. The book will be trademarked. So yeah, that's actually a good idea. I don't know that I care to trademark the binder strategy because I have video proof that it was my idea on BiggerPockets, and then my channel existed. So if somebody came out with it and tried to trademark it to where I couldn't talk about it, I could fight them on it. Because it's not my care that I get credit for it. My care is that everybody has access to that idea for free. Because it's good for the landlord, you get to raise the rents. But how many times are tenants happy when there's a rent increase? And every time that binder method is used, the tenants leave the meeting happy. Jeremy, good question. I am using it next couple of weeks. Yeah, and so I'm just going to keep giving that away for free as long as possible, as long as somebody else doesn't try to lock it down and like it's their strategy and people have to pay to get trained for it. That would irritate me. Hold on. Can you elaborate a bit more on the pros and cons of allowing the tenant to come up with a rent rate rather than you as a landlord bringing in the higher rate for them? Tenant turnover is expensive. And so if you just dictate to a tenant what the rent is going to be and you just say, here's the new rent, they're more than likely going to leave or be unhappy and start looking for another place. I've been that person. I rented apartments after I moved out of my house and rented the house out. And every year the apartment would go, hey, we're going to raise the rent to this. And I would say, no problem. And I moved to the next apartment complex. I mean, a couple $100 to pay for the movers to come and move my stuff is better than an increase over the next 12 months. But when you show the tenants, because most of them haven't looked at what the rents are in the area, this is what you would be paying if you moved. You might not have known how much I paid for the property versus how much the last person who owned it, who bought it 10 years ago, what they paid. And I start the conversation with, the rents you're paying made sense to that person because they bought it at that amount. With what I paid for it and what the area average rents are, asking them what they think is fair, I've never had a tenant ask for less. The smallest in the whole time I've used the binder method was $155. In the last 4 weeks, I've used the binder method 3 times on existing tenants, $310, $250, and $200. The smallest one this year was the $200. Happy tenants, and I've got the rents to where I can now cover the increase in property taxes. I can cover the increase in insurance, and my handyman costs more because wage inflation is happening. So I don't have to kick tenants out, do a rehab, and get my rents up to where they need to be. So I save $5,000 to $7,000 on the tenant flip, but I'm making more money every month that covers those added expenses that have come up. So to me, that's the pro for that. Jeremy, exactly. So financing 20% discounts where they carry the down payment. It's a great deal. Yeah. So if you can make that work, go for it. I know you were talking, you had 6 properties under contract in our video the other day. Rodrigo, howdy from Maryland. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me. Jeremy, let the scout begin. I'll find you a 12% yield after all costs. There you go. Challenge accepted. Thanks, Ninja. Hold on. Definitely a giver, but his strategy seems to work great for many people. Exactly. Thank you. Sorry. To be fair, I'm supposed to put that in every video. Any Letterkenny fans here? Rolled on. I appreciate the pro explanation. Thank you. And Jonathan, I appreciate your videos a lot. I have been working on figuring out this rental, wow, I can't read tonight. Sorry. And I know most people can see the chat, but sometimes people like me, I close the app down and just keep listening. So that's why I read these out loud. Working on figuring this rental property thing for a couple decades. I'm just about to go after a duplex, move into it, and get another one. Nice. That's a good strategy. And remember, in your area, if you found the duplex already, great. If not, look for houses with an ADU. That doesn't mean the other house is smaller. I have a friend who's bought that, and both of the houses are big. Some people call it a mother-in-law house or granny flat or something, but 2 houses on one property. The numbers work just like a duplex, but you truly qualify for single-family house lending. So with a conventional loan, if you haven't owned a house in 3 years, you can do 3% down. If you have owned a house, you can do 5% down. Where a lot of people right now for duplexes, even owner-occupied, some lenders are wanting 15% down. So that's another option to look in your area, because you kind of eliminate home buyers don't want to buy a house with an ADU because they're not looking to have tenants. And investors usually forget to add ADU and DADU into their auto searches. So you don't have as much competition for those. Okay. Advice for out-of-state landlords. David Green's book, the book on long-distance investing, talks about, and so start with the book, maybe the audible version, building a team. Because to me, I think you should invest where you have a tactical advantage. Either you live there, which is I invest locally, right? So I know the neighborhoods. Maybe you used to live there and you know the neighborhoods and you know which ones to avoid, because 3 blocks over from a great deal can be a war zone that you don't want to go to. It's not like an entire area is good and another area is bad. It's in a good area, there are bad areas that you don't go to. So property management, real estate agent, somebody that you know in that area, if you don't know the neighborhood, that can help you pick and choose. Because if you let people know in an area that you want to invest, let's say you live in Los Angeles where people say it's too expensive to invest, and you don't want to go up to Kern County like my brother right on the edge of Los Angeles, invest where it's much cheaper, and you don't have such strict tenant-friendly laws. So you go to another state. You contact an agent in that state and you say, I'm a Californian and I want to invest in your state. They're going to send you a great deal that all of the investors that are there passed on. So the tactical advantage of having somebody you know and trust in an area is how I would invest at a distance. And then definitely property management. I only property manage because it's close to me. If I was at a distance of more than 2 hours drive to the property, I would have somebody else managing the properties. How can you find deals off market? Wholesalers, local real estate meetup groups, driving for dollars. Literally, people go to Craigslist and they look at ads of places that are for rent, and they contact the owner and say, hey, are you looking at selling your property? Every landlord I know gets calls every day if they're looking to sell. Some of them are. There are mailers where they have companies that will do it where it looks like a handwritten note, and you can get as detailed as you want with skip tracing. You can find out from your county records who is an out-of-state investor, what properties haven't had taxes paid on them. Some people go to like the divorce records for their county, figure out who's getting a divorce, and then hit them up for property sales. There's all kinds of ways to find off-market deals. The reason I'm saying this is like it's kind of easy is because I've never done an off-market deal. My deals are all from the MLS, traditional lending, 10% or better cash on cash return, rinse and repeat, no special sauce, not a lot of work. To find off-market deals takes work because there's a lot of people working to find those. You're competing against every wholesaler out there who's trying to find that off-market deal and then find a buyer for it. There's probably a lot of content on that in the BiggerPockets forums too, on off-market deals. I haven't done them because I haven't found the need yet. If I was running a business where I was trying to, my acquisition team was trying to buy a property every week, yes, I would have crazy strategic ways of finding those deals. I like to buy one property. It was every 2 years, then it was every year, and now it's about every 6 months. So it gets a little faster, so I'm trying to source one deal every 6 months. I don't need to be too creative with that. Leon, howdy. Ava, howdy. And thank you for yet another, thank you. Rob, are you seeing deals with the same percentage above your $1 million? I really haven't started to look yet. So I found one and I would have made the offer, but I hadn't secured the cash out refinance on the house yet. So yes, I am. I found one. It was about a 15% return. It was $1,015,000. And with the rents that I knew where they are now, it was like a 2% return. But I know what the rents will be, and I have the binder strategy, so I can actually pursue it with confidence. They, just below area average rents. I knew the rents would be there, and it was a great return. But I have to secure the money from the cash out refinance. So I'll keep looking. Then another one will pop up. One of the things to always remember in real estate is you don't miss your chance. You miss that chance. Then you move on to the next one. Ninja, how do you manage burnout if you already work a job and you do rentals? Just create systems and follow it. Burnout. I know that there's an answer that would make sense. my resistance to burnout is I work 50 to 60 hours a week running a company, and I've got 60 employees. We're opening our 5th location right now. I drove a semi from Washington to Idaho over the weekend, and then I'm out there painting signs on a ladder today. So I get what it's like to be tired after work. Imagine being trapped and having to do that job and not being able to walk away anytime you can. That's how I avoid burnout. Knowing that, like, when I first started investing, and I just got that, I moved from the house into the apartment, and I realized in 2 years I will have the rental income to where my debt to income ratio won't matter, and I'll be able to buy a duplex, move into one side, and rent out the other. Hadn't even bought the duplex yet. The weight on their shoulders just disappeared because I knew I had less than a 10-year path to financial freedom where work would be optional. So if you're buying rental properties now, each one that you buy, yeah, it's a little bit extra work. You have to get it ready. You have to screen tenants, place tenants, put your leases in place. But that freedom that you're buying, I think burnout happens if you're trapped in a job. As soon as the job is optional, work becomes kind of fun. And your bosses treat you totally different because they know you're there because you want to be. So that's kind of how I do it. So there's probably a better way to avoid burnout with taking vacations and putting your systems in place to make sure everything's handled by as many other people as you can. But for me, it's knowing that I'm not trapped in the rat race that makes it easy for me to never get burnt out. Howdy, Cody. Thanks for stopping by. What is your favorite under the radar real estate content to watch? Under the radar. That's hard. So I watch a lot of Michael Zuber, his other content, there's other guests that are on there, help out. I'm actually working with Matt, the mortgage guy, right now to take that refinance money out of the paid off house. It's weird. I will look up Graham Stephan, but I will do the search by content upload date, and I will go back 3 or 4 years and watch his first couple of years content. Same thing with Meet Kevin. I avoid anything that's for the last year. It was anything that said stimulus or governor or stocks, because their original content was you buy rental properties, just like one rental at a time, and eventually you've escaped being trapped at work. Investing with Rose is pretty good. There's one called Tiffany, but I don't know the name of her channel. That's pretty good. Todd Baldwin. I'm not far enough on the right or the left to have an opinion when it comes to politics. Todd Baldwin is very capitalism, I guess. I don't know if he has a left or right side to him. So he's done some really good debates with, like, him talking to a socialist. I don't want to do that on my channel because I don't want to be one side or the other. I don't really have an opinion on that kind of stuff. My goal is to say, here's how you buy assets that pay for your lifestyle so you don't have to work. Keep it that simple. But and it's not under the radar, but BiggerPockets still puts out great content. I'm shocked every time I listen to David Green, because I worked in law enforcement and he works in law enforcement. And whenever he's talking, his mind is at least 3 sentences ahead of the words coming out of his mouth. And you can tell by the tone and inflection of what he's saying. And it's just kind of cool to see all of that knowledge is just in his head. And it's second nature. Under the radar, though. I'll keep thinking if I think of other content that I watch. There's probably some I can cheat. I can tell you right now on my subscription stuff. Who am I subscribed to? So first one that pops up, one rental at a time, BiggerPockets, Minority Mindset. So I don't know if you watch that. Jaspreet Singh is got great content all the way back and still current. Kris Krohn, listen to him a lot. His energy is great. I don't invest the way he does, but his energy is great for that. Ryan Pineda is not really under the radar. Chandler David Smith. It's got a great rental calculator app, and he was just a guest on BiggerPockets. His channel is getting a bit bigger now. He's over 100,000 subscribers. His is kind of similar. He runs a business, and learning how to do sales made him great at real estate. And I was watching his BiggerPockets episode, and I took some thoughts away to help train staff at our company. So that's a little bit under the radar. Brian, howdy. We'll definitely buy your book. Thanks. You're a nerd. I'm definitely a nerd. It's easier to find information in a book than watching videos. Videos always pull down multiple rabbit holes. Yep. I totally agree. Especially, and that's kind of my goal with the book. I have a basic outline of the chapters if I can find it really quick, because I know it's not good for being on live and looking at a thing. So where I was, mindset shifts is going to be how to find your freedom number, the difference between rich and wealthy, how to buy rentals without spending money, having an asset for every expense. So each chapter is like, when you're placing a tenant, there should be the section of the book that you go to. When you're hunting for properties, here's the section you go to. When you're looking at considering a cash out refinance or home equity line of credit or selling or what to do with the capital, like there'll be those chapters so that you could just basically go to an outline, not an outline, an index at the beginning and say, this is what I need to read this week. And then I lost my spot, of course. Powell. There's no way I could say your last name right. Blazenjowick. Hi, Dion. Thanks for sharing all the information. Kudos for the great job. Thank you. Are you at the stage where you need to open corporations already or still buying under your own personal name? I'm still buying in my own personal name. And when I hit 10,000 subscribers, if I ever get there, I'm going to do a video in a rant style about why I don't have an LLC. And I suppose if I go for more than 10 mortgages, I would get an LLC if I was going to have partners or use hard money or commercial loans. Those lenders require it. So there might be a reason. But my goal is probably to get to 10 mortgages in my name, take all of the cash flow, pay off a mortgage, get another one, take all the cash flow and just rinse and repeat and always stay. I like 30-year fixed rate debt. I don't want adjustable rates. I don't want loan reevaluation periods. There's all kinds of reasons why I don't want that. And other than being able to get commercial loans, there is absolutely no benefit at all to having an LLC as a rental property owner. That's not asset protection. It doesn't hide your name. People can find that out. It doesn't do all the things people think. It just gives you access to commercial loans and hard money, and it can protect you from someone else's mistakes if you have a partner. But I don't want to do that until I have 10,000. I want to make an actual video because I have a feeling I'm going to piss off at least half the people that watch my content, and I'm going to lose a bunch of people. Because my concern is so many people are just adamant you have to have an LLC, that new investors who don't even own a property yet never buy one because they think, I don't know how to make a business. I don't know how to get an LLC. And that stops them in their tracks when it's literally buy a house, rent it out. That's it. Do that over and over and over. All the details and the strategy that you use is what defines it. You need the strategy is the investing style that you're going to use. And then the tactics is things like how to screen. What is your tenant criteria? How do you buy properties that help you limit the tenant turnover? And I could probably not get it right, but there's a quote, because it's easier to do this when you edit, not during a live stream. The quote from Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War. Strategy without tactics is the slowest path to victory, and tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So you have to have both, and you have to know which one is which. And you can apply that to business. And there's at least a 50% chance I got that right. And I lost my spot again here. I love Chandler and David. Yep, they're awesome. Jonathan, ADU is a mother-in-law suite. So auxiliary dwelling unit, detached auxiliary dwelling unit. So it just depends on what the seller thought it was when they put the listing in there. An ADU, everyone I've ever seen, is detached. So that they clarify it by putting the D on there just means it meant something to them. What is my book name and is it on Audible? So right now, my book is in my head. I'm going to narrate Michael Zuber's book for Audible The book is 15 Conversations with Real Estate Millionaires. The title of my book is going to be The Cheat Code to Wealth, A Lazy Person's Guide to Financial Freedom. Haven't written it yet. I made this channel to answer basic questions. I was in the Real Estate Rookie Facebook group and the BiggerPockets official group, and I'm a teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets boot camps that happen. They're 10-week courses. My goal was, a lot of people come with the same question: how do you collect rents? Well, I can answer that question in literally hundreds of responses, or I can make a 10-minute video on how I collect rents, 3 things I consider, and then I have that, and I can copy and paste the link whenever that question comes up. And that's just one example. There's there's over 100 videos that I've made to specifically answer just questions. And then I have videos that are deep delves, because I'm kind of selfish and I like hearing a person's story. Like when I hung out with Jeremy the other day, and we did 2 videos. We did one on his trajectory of and I'm talking like Jeremy's not here. Jeremy talked about his whole portfolio and what got him started, and his 8 kids, and his $5,000 a month cash flow that he already has, and the properties that he's adding. And then we did a deep delve. I like to share those videos with everybody, but that's for me too. I like watching BiggerPockets because somebody comes on and shares their story. I like Michael Zuber's new book because it's 15 stories of people who reached financial freedom, where I can pick up the book and go to a story. The math is simple. We all understand: buy cash flowing assets, spend less than you make, save and invest the difference, and you will reach financial freedom. That's not motivating. That's logic. I need to know that I'm a single parent. Has a single parent ever pulled this off? I got laid off from a police department because of a recession. Has somebody who's ever lost their job before pulled this off? So when I see those stories, I'm like, oh, if they could do it, I could totally do this. So my goal is to share that if I can do this, you can do this. So I made the YouTube channel, and then the book is because people take in information differently. I want to make sure I'm providing this information to people who are specific readers. I'm a reader. I love reading. It's just because of my job that I became an Audible information intaker. But if I had my choice, I would read. But thanks, Ninja, for asking that. Cody, I do miss Brandon Turner's energy now that he hasn't been on. Good job on the money show. Yeah, thank you. It was kind of cool that, this is a live stream. I'm going to give away 2 audiobooks. And normally I say, I'm going to give away Set for Life by Scott Trench or something like, no, I'm just giving away 2 audiobooks. I would prefer that they're, one of the BiggerPockets books, or one rental at a time, or, a book on investing, or invest on real estate, or something like that. It doesn't have to be, but I would prefer that. If you go to BiggerPockets Money and you leave a comment saying something like, this was a great show, thanks for having Dion on, or, oh my God, Dion's on this show, I want them to know that people know me, and I'm hoping they have me back, because it was really cool. I'm kind of like a Mindy Jensen fan, so I got to hang out with her for an hour while we interviewed someone else. So if I can go back, that would be awesome. And it's the way I normally do it on my channel. Whoever leaves those comments, I don't have it with me because I'm in Idaho, but I have a 20-sided dice. I will roll that dice. Out of the first 20 comments, whatever I roll, I'll count down. I'll reach out to that person. And then I use an Audible credit. You will tell me the book that you want. I'll give it to you. And then I will roll the dice again. And so I'm going to give it away 2 audiobooks for people who leave comments. And I should grab a link to that video really quick, if I can find it. Not sure how to share my screen during YouTube Live yet. I'm working on that. My goal. Let me see if I can find the video, and I'll get a link. Here it is. Hopefully it doesn't just start playing, because that would be loud. Okay, there we go. Share the link. If it'll let me do this in the comments. If you go to that video, it's BiggerPockets Money, where we interview a guy about entrepreneurship and starting businesses. Gabe Nelson was the guest. And if I miss a question, you can always put it again, because I'm trying to catch everyone as I go. So Larry, can you explain the trust strategy you mentioned earlier? So if you kindergarten version. Talk to a CPA, because this is my perception of something that I haven't really done yet because I haven't died. So you put your properties in a trust. You become the chair of the trust. Your heirs are named in the trust, and when you pass, one of them becomes the chair, or they become the chair, so that the properties stay in that entity. It's for the tax benefits of inheritance. That's when that makes sense. And talk to a CPA would be the person you talk to about a trust. And if they're not the right ones, they'll recommend who you form your trust with. And I'm sure it would be an attorney that would form the trust, but the CPA can better explain what a trust is. And in the future, someday, not today, I will do at least 3 days worth of research on exactly how trusts work, and then I'll make a 10-minute video. That's my strategy. Whenever you see a 10-minute video that pops up and it looks like a course, it's because I took at least 3 days to make sure I had everything right. Because something I've learned, and this came from the Facebook groups, when I try to answer a question, I'm trying to be helpful and answer a question. If there's one nuance in my answer that's off, I get pounced on, and then all the rightness of it is gone because of that one little thing that was wrong. So that's how I do those videos. Like when I did the compare a home equity line of credit to a cash out refinance, or commercial properties to single family. Those kind of videos, they took me longer to study that concept, even though I already kind of had it in my head, to make sure everything was right, than it did to make the video. Yeah. And then Cesario removed a message. Okay. Patrick, how do you fund the down payment for your properties? I house hacked the first investment property because it was a smaller down payment. So with house hacking, you can use FHA loans, which are 3.5% down. If you're buying a single family, only 3% down. And so saving up 3% of a $300,000 house would be $9,000 plus closing costs, immediate repairs, and reserves. So you got to save up. I saved up 20 grand to buy that first duplex. Over time, spend less than you make, literally save the money. You can do seller financing for smaller down payments. There's a few different options. But so I was living in a house that I kept through a divorce. I had gotten laid off from the police department, was teaching people at our truck driving school. And when I first started, I was just a part-time night instructor making $17 an hour. Didn't have a lot of money. So I had bad debt to income ratio. So I moved into an apartment and rented out the house. After 2 years, I had rental income on my tax returns from that house, which made my debt to income ratio not matter, because lenders will look at the rental income on the properties you're buying. And some lenders will require that you have at least 3 months remaining on your leases. So I bought a duplex with a 5% down conventional loan. Right now, they're not offered by very many people, unless there's one product out right now where you can do 5% down conventional if you're at 80% or less of the median income in your area. And Matt, the mortgage guy, has that product available. But if you make a decent amount of money right now, small multifamily is going to be 15% down if you're going to live there. So FHA might work better because it's 3.5% down all the way up to a fourplex. It was 2 years until I bought the next duplex, and I worked a lot of overtime. I had a weird side hustle for the first 5 years of investing. I was playing a game called World of Warcraft, and people will buy anything. So my kids would play World of Warcraft, and they would get playtime by gathering me stuff. And then they got to play too. And then I would sell that stuff on websites. And so I was making $300-400 a month on that would just go into an account. So it took 2 years to save the next down payment. But there's this thing called the income snowball that will start to come in once you have a couple of cash flowing assets. Cash flow from the house. My rent was $1,500 a month in the apartment. When I moved into the duplex, I was paying $300 out of pocket. So that basically added $1,200 a month to my savings rate. And then the next duplex cash flowed about $1,000. So all of that together meant that the next duplex purchase was less than 2 years. And it's absolutely insane when I say the numbers that are in my world now. 10 years ago, I was making $17 an hour, had $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until I got divorced and found out about it. And now I'm saving up a couple $100,000 every 6 months because of the cash flow from properties. I'm saving 100% from work. So yeah, it takes time. Time is the element that's missing. You need those first 4 to 6 years to get a couple cash flowing assets, combined with avoiding life creep. The first 8 years, I didn't get a new vehicle. At the 8-year mark, I went and bought a brand new Corvette, and then 2 years later, got a brand new F-250. So the good things come later, but those first 6 years or so, keep it frugal and reinvest every penny that comes back in. And that's how I save the down payments. There are creative ways to buy properties, but I think if you can't save the down payment, you might not be in the financial position to handle a water heater destroying a $5,000 section of your floor, or a roof failing and you have to put in $7,000 to $10,000 for a roof replacement, or foundation issues that can pop up, or septic. So learning how to save and having reserves, it takes more time. It doesn't happen overnight. This is a 10 years or less, the average person can reach financial freedom, not 1 year or less. So it's a challenge, but it's totally worth it. Know thyself first. That's a cool name. I'm about to buy my first property through a non-QM loan and having to do the LLC route, saving my last 2 conventional loans for a bigger property. That's smart. So there are times LLC makes sense. You want to do non-QM, you want to do commercial, you want to do hard money. So that, or if you have partners, there are times I would use an LLC. So my rant isn't going to be, you don't ever need an LLC. My rant is going to be, stop telling people they need an LLC to buy their first rental. So that sounds like you're in a good position. So sorry, amazing. I subscribed at 85. Nice. I should hit there soon. When I started it, my goal was to make about 5 videos. I thought people would want to watch the binder strategy, maybe how to screen tenants, and a couple of other ones that I thought, okay, this is kind of unique to what I do. When I started making videos, I realized that to fully explain and teach somebody how to invest in any asset class, how cash flow works, how inflation impacts this, and how if you own cash flowing assets, inflation is your friend. Like I'm gaining money because of appreciation. I'm able to borrow money that costs me less to pay back than it's going to inflate next year. So there's no way to explain all that in 5 videos. And now I have a list of videos I want to make that just keeps growing and is in the hundreds. So as long as people want to learn how to do this, I'm going to keep making content. And I think I lost where I am again. Sorry. How did you fund? Oh, I missed. Sorry, it looks like I missed. How do you protect? If I ever miss them, please ask again. Sorry. How do you protect your assets without an LLC? Great question. Because an LLC provides you absolutely no protection. 0, unless you have partners. None. It's a myth. Sorry. That's why I get frustrated, because a new investor thinks you need an LLC. You don't need an LLC because it doesn't do anything for you. There's no tax benefit. The IRS actually calls an LLC a disregarded entity. And there's a thing called piercing the veil, which is more and more common. Any attorney who is not asleep, who actually went to school to pass the bar to become an attorney, can do a couple-minute Google search to figure out who owns the LLC, and then we'll tell the judge, these are assets in that person's name. So as in a lawsuit, if you're ever sued, they're going to give you this form that you fill out all of your assets, and that's going to be listing every LLC that you own. So they're not separated. They are yours. The only way assets are separated in an LLC is if you have partners, because now those are commingled. So asset protection comes from 3 things. First, insurance. I have property insurance on every property that covers up to $300,000 in slip fall damage. So if somebody gets hurt, that's the coverage. Then I have full replacement cost of the building in case there's a burn down, or if there's damage to your house, you can use insurance to fix it, but I wouldn't do it unless the whole thing needed fixed, because your insurance rates will go up. Sounded like somebody was dying here. Sorry. No idea what that was. Insurance. After the insurance on the property, just in case a lawsuit goes above the $300,000 threshold for slip fall damage on the property, I'm covered with an umbrella policy. I pay $550 a year for $2 million in coverage. So if the insurance at the property is tapped out, then it comes after me. The insurance policy, which names every one of my properties in it, then kicks in. So I have $2 million in coverage. That's the first thing. The second thing is leverage. I keep mortgages on my properties. I have one paid off, but I'm adding a mortgage to it. The bank is in first position. Nobody's going to get that property from me because the bank has first right to it. And third, and this is the most important, the third form of asset protection is actually fix stuff. Be proactive. Do a 6-month or 1-year walkthrough where you test the strength of the balcony. and the banister on the stairs, and you make sure the carpet on the stairs is not slippery or coming off. You make sure that the deck isn't rotten and that the doors and windows operate. You change the batteries in your detectors, test the detectors. Listen to tenants when they make a complaint. If it's anything that can be safety related, that is immediately, that is priority. Get a handyman over there. I don't do it myself. Get the handyman over there to fix it. So those are the 3 forms of asset protection: insurance, leverage, proactive, fixing things. Hopefully that was clear enough. Andres, can Airbnb income be used as rental income for a refinance? Yes and no. And lenders will look at, no lenders are made the same. And even a lender you talk to next week is different than the one you're going to talk to next week if it's the same person. Their criteria changes constantly. For lenders to recognize rental income, it needs to be on your tax return. So if you have Airbnb rental income on your tax returns, they can take a 2-year average and kind of guess what it's going to be. To include the rental income on a property that you're purchasing, that's where they look at your whole portfolio and they want at least 3 months remaining on rental. So if you're doing Airbnb and they rent out for 10 months, sure, you've got a lease there for 10 months, because Airbnb doesn't mean weekends only and everything. I've got a friend who does Airbnb, and it's usually a company that rents for 10 months and puts employees there, or traveling nurses who are there for 10 months to 12 months. So it can be long-term Airbnb. And it confused me in the beginning when a lender said, we can only count that rent if you have the majority of your leases have at least 3 months remaining, until they explained the lender processes your loan, pays for the property or pays off the other mortgage, and then they hold your loan for as long as it takes them to find a buyer for the note. They sell that note to someone else. So even if you're still paying whoever did your mortgage, they're probably just the servicer collecting a small fee to process that, and then they're sending the money to who owns the note. I've never had a lender keep the note longer than 3 months, so that's why they want 3 months remaining on leases, so that they know you're going to collect rent while they own the note. After they sell it, it's not their problem. No, Lisa first. Where's the map background? So I'm in Idaho, and normally I would bring it with me, but then I need a way to secure it to the wall. And if I'm in one of my own places, I can do that. If I'm at work, I can do that. I'm not going to put holes in my friend's wall. And the map does serve a lot of purposes. Usually you can't tell if I'm recording at work or at home or at a friend's house, other than this. And they soften up the sound. I don't know if you could tell or not, but it's a little tinny in here because there's no tapestry behind me. Dawn, Cesario. I was just trying. Nice. I'm glad that you guys subscribed and that you hang out. Kind of like when you do a live. The first few minutes, I'm talking to myself and I'm thinking, is anybody even going to log in here today? And so the first 10 minutes, I usually try to do a subject, because I will then pull out that and make another video on that. But it gives me time for people to put the questions in here. In my world, outside of YouTube, outside of the Facebook groups for BiggerPockets, I have 60 employees. I work with 2,000 students a year that come through our CDL school. Two of my employees have gotten into rentals. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. This is like my therapy, hanging out with people who actually want to improve their financial state. Don't get me wrong. And if there's any listening, this is not an insult to you. It's great as an employer to have employees who need the work, right? But I have a fleet manager, and he is going to retire. He's counting it down, 38 weeks. I think this week he hit 38 weeks. So congratulations, Dan. We're getting there. I'm still going to retire before you. He's doing this because he listened to me. He talked to me. He read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He purchased a house with an ADU with his son doing a house hack. They added another property. He's got I want to do a deep dive on this because it's got 5 rental incomes on there. It's so awesome that I'm losing an amazing employee. This guy, fleet man, he takes care of all of our trucks. We have last count I remember was 54 power units. It's more than that now. So we're losing an asset, and I'm happy because he's able to retire. But out of everybody I work with, 2 are doing anything like this. So I'm very thankful for you guys coming on here and hanging out, because I have a lot of information on this subject that I want to share. And You guys are probably rolling your eyes a lot less than anybody at work that listens to me talk about this stuff. Okay, and then I lost myself. How do we map? Million. Do you have a business bank account or do you have a regular checking account and savings account? I just rented my first single family. So I need to do a video on this. And it's almost a short, like a minute. Here's what my business structure looks like with 16 rental units. 1 checking account, personal. 1 savings account, personal. 1 credit card in my name, not business, used for cashback and paid off daily. 1 Excel spreadsheet with a tab for income and a tab for expenses. I send the spreadsheet to a CPA and I sleep like a baby. That's it. That's the whole business. I mean, yeah, I've got like a vision book where I put the information of the rentals in there, and there's a notes column in that Excel spreadsheet where I put in expenses and what they were. So there's a little more detail, but it's that simple. If you have an LLC, now you have to make sure you're not commingling finances or the LLC. It doesn't matter. So it confuses everything for me. It would at a whole new level. So that's how I do it. KISS principle. Keep it simple. This stuff should be taught in school. I would hope that they would teach more of this in school. My daughter was super impressed, but she should have waited to say this. We were at her high school talking to her principal. My kids get in trouble. And I told the principal, how come there are 64 banners of colleges all around this room that we're in, but there's no trade schools? There's no HVAC, there's no welding, there's no CDL, there's none of these things that are actually going to give somebody the chance to make good money. Everybody in here is being told to go to college. And the principal educated me. He actually told me something I didn't know. High schools get their funding based on how many college applications are submitted, not how many people go to college. They don't care about that. It's how many applications are submitted that tells the state how much funding that high school should get. So the schools promote everybody to go to college, and then from the American Education Association, 15% of high school graduates continue on to a 4-year degree. So it's not a big percentage, and that's with everybody being told to do it. The principal looked at my daughter and says, besides, don't you want her to go to school and get a good job? Go to college and get a good job? My daughter looked at him, and she should have waited because she said she still had 2 years to go at this school. She said, no, I'm not going to college. I'm going to get a CDL from my dad's school and make more money than you do. I was proud. She still had 2 years to go there. She shouldn't have said that. I definitely will write. So, and I'm going to start writing as soon as I'm done narrating the book for Michael Zuber. Scott, greetings from Michigan. Howdy. We're here looking for partners to hire. Do you know anybody? Oh, painters to hire. I would use the Thumbtack app. If you're looking for painters, if you're looking for a company, but are you looking for like employees to work for your painting company? That would be a different answer. But if you're looking for like a painter to use, then I would use the Thumbtack app. I've had really good luck with it. At the end of the project, the contractor knows you're going to get to leave a review, and on that app, they matter. Jonathan, by the way, I like the Mark of Cain. Thanks. That's your normal background. Forgotten Realms is more real to me than most places I've been. And I alternate from Dragonlance to Forgotten Realms back and forth. Nerd. And the Mark of Cain, me and my niece, hi Tammy, if you're out there, I got them together. We watched Supernatural for years and years and years, and we talked for 5 years. We talked about getting that tattoo, and then we were on a trip one time, and we were like, let's just go do it. We went and got the tattoo. And it's kind of because, it's from Supernatural, but my niece and myself can both identify with wanting to kill our brothers. So Mark of Cain makes sense. Sparty, first live event for me. Howdy. Tony Reynolds. Okay, looking forward to the knowledge drop. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I really like getting to be on the one rental at a time thing with Matt and Mike. And Matt said this early on. Steel sharpens steel. Hanging out with two guys whose portfolios are just so much bigger than mine. Like, my goal was financial freedom. I reached financial freedom in 2018. After that, it was like, enjoy life, share the information. But I'm hanging out with them every day. My brain starts to process, recycling capital, something I've never thought of or would have done. And the million dollar challenge and those kind of things. So if I wasn't hanging out with them, I wouldn't be growing as much myself. So I'm super happy to get to be on there. What part of Michigan? Nice. Ellie, do you have a separate bank account for each rental property? Nope. Answered that with one checking account, one savings account. Keep it simple. Dawn, asset protection info is really great. Scribbling as fast as I can. I don't miss anything. Awesome. I should have called out like a timestamp of when that was. Mr. Banks, can you share what you use for a P&L, profit and loss? Shoot, if I know how to scrum. So I'm going to learn how to use OBS or whatever it's called to share screen during a live event. Tried for an hour today before this. Couldn't figure it out. Like I have a complete diagram to go over that business thing that I talked about earlier. Share what you'd use for a profit and loss. I have each property listed out in that spreadsheet with the income that comes in, and I total it up at the end. So I know how much money came in from that property. So I would have the Excel spreadsheet box that I could use. On the expenses tab, I could, instead of arranging it by property name, I could arrange it by, I can arrange it by property name, and then I would see the list of every expense that went to that property. So I could take that total and compare. I could break down, just with Excel spreadsheet, I can break down what I'm doing there. But that's more detail than you need. Like I know that information so that I can teach it to somebody. But what do I need is, what is my monthly cash flow coming in? What is my, every business has what's called a burn rate. So if you run a company, like our CDL school has a burn rate. The rents, the insurance, there's certain things that are always going to be consistent expenses. Then there's some fluctuating expenses like wages, cost of fuel, those kind of things. Whenever an accident happens and you pay $1,700 to fix a roof, I still got to go talk to that person. With rentals, it's kind of the same. I know what the mortgage is going to be. I know what the insurance is going to be. I know those expenses, what they're going to be fixed at. But then there's the, I set aside 10% for CapEx and maintenance. I set aside 5% for vacancy. I self-manage, so I don't set aside for that. So that money technically is set aside, but I don't always set it aside. When I buy the property, I make sure that I could do that and it would still cash flow. That's how I run the numbers. I'm making sure I still cash flow after P, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, CapEx, and vacancy, right? So after setting aside for all that. But my reserves, when I had 7 units or less, only went up to 10,000. Now at 16, I go to 30,000. This is while I'm working. If I ever stopped working, I would double my reserve amount. Everything above $30,000 needs to be making me more money. So that 10% for repairs and CapEx and 5% for vacancy, that doesn't, since my reserve is capped, that money doesn't come to me to spend. That money goes into the investing fund for the next asset. So that if I ever do need to go below 30,000, then that money from all gross rents can go and refill that account. And gross rents is what, 21,600 a month. So 15% of that, if you want to do the math, is how much I could refill that account with without impacting the money that I usually take out, which I don't really take out because the income is at least 3 times what it costs me to live from rental income. So I guess I don't have like my truck driving school. We use QuickBooks and I run profit and loss statements for every decision that comes up. We do a zero, a zero basis calculation on, revisiting every vendor that we use. And it's a bunch of business stuff. Real estate, buy a property, rent it out. Learn how to buy properties that will cash flow, rinse and repeat. Like it's super, super simple in comparison. Can you share what you use? DJ Sonali. Hi, Dion. Excellent videos. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are inspiring me. Jay Layton. Jeff here. Hey. What's the logo on your shirt about? I'm a nerd. Pointed it out twice today. If you've seen the movie Office Space, the red stapler, from the guy's desk. And TPS, I run a nonprofit called Transportation Placement Services. And I named it that so I can ask for TPS reports. How many placements did we do? But my nonprofit, basically in Washington state alone, there's a little over 6,000 registered transportation companies. And everybody knows there's a driver shortage. But those companies have admin, management, HR, IT, operations, forklift, mechanic, all these non-driving positions. My nonprofit helps people find those non-driving positions. And what it did is it helped us build a relationship with local trucking companies. So our graduates from the CDL school don't have to go over the road to go right to work for local companies. It was actually the idea that got me demoted down to president of the company, and they gave me part ownership. So that's the logo for my nonprofit. Thanks for asking. Hold on. Oh, Ratters. I like it. Yep. You had to catch up from the beginning. Very good info and putting out first Dion live. Nice. Cool. This is my third, but with my memory, it's always going to seem like my first. So Powell, this is a great session. Thank you. No, thank you. I'm glad you guys are here. And I appreciate the questions. Tom, hey Dion, love your content. Thank you. Janet, thank you. You are sharing your knowledge. You are my hero. Looking for financial freedom. You guys are all my hero. There's so many things you could be doing tonight, but you're taking the time to try to grow your mind to reach financial freedom so that then you have all the time you want to do those other things you could be doing now. Matt, do you prefer 2 bathrooms in case of plumbing issues, or are those typically quick fixes where it wouldn't concern you? I'm a mix of bedrooms or bathrooms. I have some with 2 and some with 1. The one with 2 had a plumbing issue and it affected both of them. So I put the tenants in a hotel for, I think it was like 7 days, a 3-day and then a 4-day, because it was kind of fixed and then it wasn't. And they had to go to a hydrojet to clean it out. So whatever the plumbers do to fix that. I would prefer 2 bathrooms because if you ever want to do rent by the room, it's easier to divide the rooms if there's more than 1 bathroom. If you want to rent to families, more bathrooms is easier for parents to agree to. But most of my tenants have 16 units. 2 sets of tenants have kids. The rest are all adults, single, married person. 1 is 3 roommates. So it's not really rent by the room. They rent the whole thing together. I do prefer 2 bedrooms or more, especially now that people can work from home and kids can be homeschooled. So I want more space when possible. Depends on your area. If you're in an area where a single bedroom or studio apartments make sense, it's based on yield. And Michael Zuber says it great. He will buy a multifamily, a small multifamily, or a single family based on which one has the best return. That's what he's looking at, especially with him now because he has, he's into commercial loans no matter what he does. So a single family commercial or a multifamily commercial, the yield would tell me everything. Mr. Banks, how did you find your 2 maintenance guys? How did you negotiate the cost for each repair they fix? First maintenance guy, I know through friends. Second maintenance guy, go to local REI meetups and talk to the investors there. And some of them, so one of the things I like to do is give referrals. My agents, I send them referrals. My lenders, I send them referrals. My handyman, I send them referrals so they can have more work. There are other investors out there like that want to share. Some will go, I'm not telling you my handyman, he's mine, you can't use him. And that's if they have a bunch of units and they're going to use up all that person's time. I only have 16. I've used my handyman in the last month twice. So like 2, not even full day projects. So it's not like they're doing a lot. So I want to send them referrals so that they've got a bunch of work. Local REI meetups, talk to the investors. That's how I would find handyman. Because you get like a face-to-face review from other investors. And how did I negotiate? So originally they would give me estimates. They're going to replace a deck. It'll cost this much money. And they give me kind of an estimate. And if it's anything big, and then I would get multiple estimates. If it's something small, like, hey, I want you to go and replace the exterior lights with LED motion sensor. And he says, yeah, $100 plus whatever the price is. Sure. But when I have more projects and I say, look, here's the list of things that you can do over the next month if you get the time. Like at this one, there's a truckload worth of trash in the back that needs to go. And at this one, I want the bathroom floor taken out and redone to the joist because it got soft, and fixed whatever the leak was that caused that. So like there's this list. Then we just agreed on $30 an hour. They track their time. And sometimes they probably get paid too much. But there are other times when it's 11 o'clock at night and they're not going to get paid enough because they're just getting that standard deal to go handle an emergency. Then it balances out. I'm happy when my handyman makes money. I'm happy when my agent makes money. And I'll try to see if I can explain this without scripting it and putting it in a video. If you have a property that's cash flowing $500 a month, so in a year, you're going to cash flow $6,000. You're going to profit $6,000. And then the hot water heater breaks and it costs you $1,000 to fix, replace the hot water heater, the labor, the parts, the whatever. A new investor might think, okay, so I was making $6,000 this year and I just spent $1,000 on a hot water heater. So now I'm going to make $5,000 this year. That's not how this works. You are going to profit $6,000 this year. You spend $1,000 on a hot water heater repair and you are going to profit $6,000 this year. And here's why. When you buy a property, 17 minutes ago, I mentioned I set aside 10% for CapEx maintenance and 5% for vacancy. So that money goes into this reserve account. So there's $30,000 sitting there. That's not my cash flow. That's not my profit every month. That's part of the equation when you buy a property that's going into that. So out of this 30,000, I take 1,000 and replace the hot water heater. Next month, out of the gross rents, 15% of whatever you're at will go back to fill up that account. The bigger the portfolio, the bigger that amount should be, because you can have several things go wrong at the same time. A couple foundations, a roof, whatever's going to happen, the more money should be there to protect your assets. So your cash flow is not impacted by problems. In the beginning, it feels like it, because you might not have the reserves built up enough and you only have one or two properties. So if you're only cash flowing $500 a month, so if your rent is only $2,000 a month and you're cash flowing $500, you're setting aside 10% for repairs and maintenance. That's $200. And 5% for vacancy. That's $100. So $300 a month is going into that account. It takes a while. It takes 3 months, a little more than 3 months, to fill up that $1,000 expense, right? So that's how it tracks out over time. When you add those assets, the income snowball not only affects your cash flow, your appreciation, your principal pay down, but the speed at which you can refill your reserve account. I hope I remember that, because that's got to go in the next video. So at 16 units with over $21,000 a month in gross rents, if I set aside 15%, that's thousands of dollars every month that's going into that to refill that. As your portfolio grows, it happens faster. And I lost where I was at. Sorry. How did you find? Okay. Would you negotiate price on off market? Okay. How would you negotiate a price on an off market deal? So start with the customer in mind. That's the very beginning of this video, is what I said. Find out what their needs are. Do they have an existing mortgage? Are they looking for a down payment for the next house? What is the seller's needs? If you can find out that, because I was making an offer on a seller finance fourplex like a month or two ago, and they had a mortgage of a certain amount. So my down payment had to cover that mortgage so that it would pay it off, or I would have to go get a loan to pay that off. And then my down payment had to be enough to cover the agent fees, because I still use agents even on off-market deals. And they're going to get their 6% for listing agent, my agent, or however, or the attorney is going to get their fees if you don't use an agent. So my down payment had to cover that so that the seller could walk away without out-of-pocket cost. Their goal was not to get a bunch of money, because they didn't want to have the capital gains income to be taxed on. They wanted consistent monthly payments. Finding out what they're looking for. Negotiating is the same. You're going to comp it out. If you're buying 4 units or less, the value is based on what other units around there are going for. They can look on Redfin and Zillow and Trulia and see what properties have sold for. So it's possible to find somebody who's really distressed and just needs to get out. So the situation is kind of specific on that negotiation. Off market doesn't always mean cheaper. I have a ton of wholesalers who approach me, and I said this before. I have never had a wholesaler bring me a good deal yet. That doesn't mean wholesalers don't bring me deals. They bring me things that cost more than they would on the MLS, and they're thinking that because it's off market, people will think it's a good deal. So negotiate based on yield. Figure out what your return is going to be by how much you put down, and make sure you're not spending more for the property than you're going to be able to get a good return. On the MLS, when a seller sells a property, that number it's something in their mind. It's not the actual value of the property. Off market or on market doesn't matter. What will it comp at? What would your yield be? And that can tell you how much you can make for an offer. Cody, would you be okay with using a line of credit for reserves? No. That's a short answer. Felipe Mejia, who used to be one of the first hosts of the Real Estate Rookie podcast, used to talk about having lines of credit or home equity lines of credit on his properties, and those were how he factored his reserves. Earlier this year or last year, or whenever it was, Wells Fargo canceled all lines of credit. They didn't cancel home equity line of credit, but just unsecured lines of credit. Poof, they're gone. And Matt, the lumberjack landlord, had this experience where he had a $75,000 line of credit. He had taken out $25,000, so it basically had a 1/3 credit utilization ratio. So 25 is 1/3 of 75. They called him and they said, "Hey, we're canceling your line of credit, so you can no longer borrow up to $75,000." So he still owed the $25,000, but that gave him now a 100% credit utilization on that loan. So it was a huge negative impact to his score. So there's several reasons why I wouldn't count that as a reserve. Doesn't mean I wouldn't have them, but for me, reserves is money. There has been a time where I used reserves I had $17,000 credit card with nothing on it. I had money in a retirement account, and I dropped down to like $200 in my account to be able to buy this one property. They used my retirement account as my reserve. The lenders will look at 50% of a retirement account as a reserve. I didn't want to tap it, but I was buying a fourplex, and I was going to get the rents from January because we were closing on the 6th. I got the rents for February without a payment yet. I got the deposits. So January, when we closed on the 6th, I had $200 in my account. By the middle of February, there was over 10 grand in my account. So there are times where I kind of was relying on reserves that weren't really reserves, but as a general rule, I wouldn't do that until I had the income snowball in place. So I would not use a line of credit as a reserve. FL, how do you get the paperwork for the tenant lease contract? Most states have a landlord-tenant resources page. I got my lease off of the Washington one, and it's no longer there, so I don't know if there's a problem with it. BiggerPockets Pro members have access to those leases. Some property management companies have them. Sometimes they don't want to share them. But check your state to see if they have resources that you can use, because they can be specific to the requirements of what that state needs to have in them. I wouldn't want to use a Georgia lease in Washington until I had an attorney look at it and tell me how much of this applies to Washington. Some small things can exist. Like in Washington state, you can sign up to a year lease, and your tenant can sign up to a year lease. If the lease is longer than a year, which I prefer 2-year leases, because then next year I don't have to screen and place a tenant again. I don't have to go do the binder method. I've got the rents where I wanted them for at least 2 years. If a tenant is signing a lease in Washington state that's longer than 12 months, they have to have their signature notarized. So the landlord doesn't have to, but for a tenant to commit to more than a year, it has to be notarized. And if your state has a different rule, you don't know that. So I would find a lease specific to your state. Brian, I think you're talking about Wealthy Tiffany. I referred you to her a while back. Brian, I think you did. I think you referred that we do a cross thing. So I've been watching a ton of her content. So if you referred her, thanks. I think she has like most of the same information that I do. Most of her videos are 10 minutes long, and it's she does a little more stocks, and she does a little more rent by the room. And so she's into house hacking. And I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I kind of try to talk at a slow cadence. So when people need to take notes, they can. But when people are watching my videos, feel free to set it to 1.5 speed or 1.75 speed to get through the content faster. Her voice works at faster speeds. So I like her content. Ian, I'm going to try. Is that Ian Van de Velde? Thanks for the great videos. Thank you. DJ Gaines, can you go over the asset protection again? I heard some, but missed some. Okay, the Cliff Notes version. 3 forms of asset protection. Insurance, property insurance on each property. And not Cliff Notes version, we do the whole version because I forgot this the first time. Everybody talks about rental insurance, landlord insurance, homeowners insurance. Those are all the same thing. You insure the property and the buildings. It doesn't matter. It's not called rental. It's not called landlord. It's not called anything. It's called homeowners insurance. If you live there, they also make you insure your personal items, so it will cost you more. So I house hacked a duplex, and the insurance was $800 and something. When I moved from the duplex into the fourplex, I call my insurance and I say I no longer live there, and it dropped to $410. It's cheaper because I don't live there. It's not like having a rental insurance policy costs you more, or a landlord insurance policy costs you more. Insurance is the same for the property and the buildings. Wherever you live costs more because you're insuring your personal items. Hope that made sense. So start with insurance, then go leverage. If the banks are in first position because you have a mortgage, nobody else is going to take that property from you because they have first position. Third is be proactive and fix things. Do walkthroughs, check for safety, listen to tenants, be timely on your repairs, document everything like that. It is not with me. I've got a book where each property has 10 pages in it. So somebody remind me next week in our live session, or maybe I'll do a video on my business book. It's 10 pages where it's a picture of the property, what I paid, who carried the first mortgage, list of the tenants, when I replaced the refrigerator, when, the insurance policy number, anything that I could need. I can have somebody open that book, go to that page and look at it. I document in there when the fence was replaced, when the windows were replaced, and the kind of repairs like that. So that if somebody says you didn't fix something, you weren't proactive, I can go back and say, hey, here's all the things I did for the property while they lived there. Price and pride. It's $300 per hour normal for a plumber in Seattle. I found one with a good rating on Thumbtack, but he seems very high. So the only thing that will tell you what is a normal price in an area is multiple quotes. If you're going to have a $5,000 deck built, you can talk to 2 or 3 contractors, right? If I'm going to get hundreds of thousands of dollar loan on a mortgage, I'm going to talk to several lenders. If I'm going to have a plumber come out and it's an emergency and it's at night and no one else will answer the phone, yeah, they're going to come and fix it. But if you have time to call and figure out what people's rates are and read the reviews, cheaper isn't always better. If the reviews are good and the price is too high, you might just keep shopping around. But compare that rate to other plumbers and see what you get. Jonathan, what do you consider to be CapEx? So capital expenditures are big expenses that you can anticipate in a timely manner that they're coming. And so many people get hung up on what is the difference between a repair or maintenance and CapEx. And to me, it's not. I've replaced a roof. And by definition, people would call that a capital expenditure. It came out of the repair and maintenance fund. And even in years where I replaced roofs, the cash flow from the rentals refilled that account before the end of the year. So I don't set aside specific for maintenance and for CapEx. It's just 10% covers that. If you're buying older properties that haven't been updated, you might increase that. If you're, I've never had a vacancy. Take out my first year. Whenever I say never, my first year means nothing. My first year was a nightmare. But since then, right, since I've got my systems in place and I run this like a business, my longest tenant turnover took 4 days. My other one, the tenants moved out at the beginning of the month, but had paid for the whole month. Didn't want anything back. So I had the whole month covered to get ready for the next tenant. The challenge with my tenant turnovers was getting everything done in 4 days for that one. I still set aside 5% for vacancies because that amount of money covers the floor or the paint when there is a tenant turnover. So it's not to cover the burn rate of having an empty property where I have the expenses without the income. It's to cover the tenant flip. So 15% for me is a safe number. And it's called repairs and maintenance and vacancy savings in my mind, but it's just an amount of money that would refill that reserve account. So for CapEx, to me, I don't really have a separate qualification for that. But big expenses that you can plan. You can look at your roof, you can have it inspected, and they could say, it might need repairs or maintenance on it, but they can say, you have 10 years left, and then you're going to need a roof. So you can plan in 10 years, I'm going to spend, right now, it would be $7,000 or $8,000 for a house. I'm paying, I paid $15,000 for a fourplex because it was a bunch of different roofs with a pitch. But you can plan that long in advance. Chester, I made it. Are there any areas that would definitely not make sense to invest in? An area that you don't know, and you don't know somebody that lives there that knows the areas. I wouldn't want to invest in an area where I didn't have the tactical advantage of knowing the neighborhoods. For instance, in Tacoma, I would buy anything in Ruston. Like, it's a little town next to Tacoma. I'd buy anything there. Great little town. A couple miles away, you have this street called McKinley Avenue. I wouldn't go there without an armed escort, and I'm armed myself everywhere I go. I still wouldn't go there. And it's a couple miles in one town, basically, one area. If you don't know things like that, I wouldn't invest if I don't know somebody that I trust who lives there and knows the areas. Because I said this at the beginning, and if you call an area and say, I'm an investor from out of state and I want to buy properties there, they're going to send you deals and explain how they're great. But they're going to send you deals that the investors who are there have passed on for reasons. Chester, yep. Long-term fixtures like washer, dryer, central air, roof, etc. Yeah, something that's going to cost a lot. Dirkstar, you have mentioned how much you store in reserves in previous videos as a lump sum across your portfolio. Do you separate the amounts per property or LLC, or do you store them all in one account? One checking account, one savings account, one credit card. That's the whole business with 16 rental units. No LLC, long list of reasons. KISS principle, keep it simple. Check your local area. You may be required to keep deposits in a separate interest-bearing account. And it used to matter when people would make 11% interest on a savings account. That was a thing a billion years ago in like the 80s. Now with 0.002 or 0.01 or whatever, not so important. Because you might have to be able to reimburse the tenant for the interest on their deposit. Dirkstar, any horror stories using the Thumbtack app? No, not yet. Great. I read the reviews in advance. Good response from it was quick, emails back and forth. I didn't have to go meet people. And the contractors know that you're going to leave a review at the end, so they are made or broke on those reviews. So they go pretty far out of their way to. I haven't gotten extra special super treatment, right? But I got fair prices, good work, so I keep using it. Chester, capital expenditures are when you expend a good chunk of capital to replace a big ticket item. Yep, exactly. So bigger items that you can plan for usually. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Like if a boiler goes out, I don't have boilers in any of mine, but I have like an HVAC system that can be thousands of dollars out of nowhere. How would you find a seller who is willing to finance? They're obviously not, they're on the MLS. What makes you think they're not on there? I thought they weren't on there for 10 years. I just now started making offers, and my first one I made, they said, sure. Then we had to work out, they had a mortgage, I couldn't make it work, so I didn't end up getting that deal. Here's how I submit my, if I have the notes, I can paste it in the chat. I submit an offer that says, I would like to save you a capital gains hit, and I would prefer to pay interest to you than a bank. But there's all these stages of the benefits to seller financing to the seller. And if you're not comfortable with this, here's my offer if I have to use conventional loans. And it might take longer because of the appraisal process that has to happen and make it not sound as good. I make an offer now from now on every deal I look at. Seller financing, conventional lending. On the MLS, off the MLS, doesn't matter. Most sellers, whether they're on or off the MLS, have never even thought of seller financing. They're just thinking, when I sell this, you have the chance that maybe they're afraid of this big capital gains hit that they're going to have. And maybe they're trying to figure out what to do with the money because they want payments. And if you just have a bunch of money in the account, it's losing value, and eventually you're going to run out of money. But if you can say, for 30 years, if you carry this note, you're going to have consistent income, and the tenant and managing the property are my problems. If I ever defaulted, you get to foreclose instead of a bank, and I'm paying interest to you instead of a bank. So it's kind of more learning how to pitch seller financing than finding a seller interested in seller financing, if that makes sense. How would you, okay. Chester, have you used Hemlane, PropStream, or BP Pro? In case you have, would you recommend any of them? I have not used Hemlane. I'm thinking about it. Haven't even looked into PropStream. I am a BP Pro member because I'm one of the teaching assistants in the BiggerPockets bootcamp, and it would be kind of hypocritical to go, you should be a pro member so you can take this course, but I'm not. And if you're an agent or a broker or a lender, BP Pro has a ton of stuff that you're going to use. If you're doing a lot of purchases over and over and over, you're wholesaling, flipping, or doing the burn method where you're doing a lot more fast than I am, BP Pro probably has more things for you. Here's where the real benefit is that doesn't apply to me. The BiggerPockets Pro calculators and rental estimators are amazing looking. The pie charts of return, and it's bright colors, and your brain can flow on a chart and you can see what the return looks like. If you're married or you have a partner and you're going to invest and you want to show a deal to someone else in such a way that you bring them along with you to where they have that buy-in, it's great. Single guy, nobody cares what I do. So I use the Chandler David Smith calculator because it's super simple and just spits out a number. BiggerPockets Pro is probably one I would have if I had a spouse and if I did more deals more rapidly. The other two, Hemlane, I mean, I use apartments.com now to list properties. I've had no problems with that. I used Cozy before that. If I took the time to learn how to use Hemlane, I'm pretty sure I would have all my portfolio run through there. Retrainer, a little blurry there. Amazing vacancy rates you have. What percentage of your portfolio is Section 8? I try to keep a third Section 8. So I had 16. It's usually 3 or 4. It dropped down to 3. The last time that I had a Section 8 tenant, he went to the hospital, passed away. Spouse went to assisted living. So I got a vacancy, right? I called Section 8. The most they would pay for that unit in that area was $1,600. I rented it out for $1,860 or $1,855, I think, and 12 applicants within 4 hours. And when I looked at the area averages, it was above 2,000. So Section 8 wasn't able to keep up. About a month later, I got this email from Section 8 saying, hey, for that unit, we'll pay $2,190. Emergency from the CARES Act, Section 8 rates changed in my area or whatever. So I try to keep 1/3, and it's an asset protection strategy. Portfolio protection is 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. The idea is a prolonged government shutdown, a pandemic, or a stock market crash is not going to impact my whole portfolio. 1/3 of them can be impacted. We've had long government shutdowns where the military didn't get paid for one pay period. We've had a 60+ day shutdown where Section 8 was not impacted. So it would have to be a really long one. Pandemic hit, I still haven't had a later missing payment because of the pandemic. So my goal is to be diversified. It would be illegal to advertise and say, I only want military in this unit, or only Section 8 can apply, right? You can't make an advertisement that says, I'm diversifying my portfolio, so I'm going to illegally discriminate against everybody except for this class. But you can control where you advertise. If I want military tenants, I go to, in your area, contact MWR. They call it Morale, Welfare, and Recreation. They probably don't handle the rentals on that base, but they know who does. So on JBLM, there's a housing authority. Advertise with them. If I want Section 8 tenants, like I did this last time, call the housing authority and I say, hey, I'm going to have a unit open up. And they told me their rates, and I wasn't able to go with them. And then I would use apartments.com to just find any random person. And it's not an exact science. I try to keep about 1/3. Angel R. Appreciate you. Hi, Angel. Who's responsible for snow cleaning in the rentals? Do you house hack? Oh, you don't house hack. Sorry. Put it in the lease. If you live in an area where snow cleaning is a thing, or putting down ice salt, whatever it's called. If you have solid ice for a period, in my leases say the sections that they take care of the lawn. My leases say all that stuff is spelled out in writing, and it's not me. I do have a 4-plex where it's harder. Like my triplex is divided up, my duplex is divided up, but my 4-plex, the yard isn't divided, so I pay a lawn service. I live there. I'm house hacking, so I did the lawn for a while, but I don't know if I told you this or not. Super lazy, So now I pay a lawn service to come in there. Right. So I probably could divide that one up. And if I do tenant replacements, I might. But yeah, put it on the lease. Dirkstar, do you ever cap off your CapEx, repairs, vacancies, budget? What do you mean? Cap off like how much I would spend on a property? Kinda. I probably would. I'm trying to think what I cap off. No, because I would replace things to keep them safe. Maybe you can a little more definition in what you mean by cap off the budget. J9. What do you do when you go out of town, like 3-week vacation, and a tenant has an issue? Do you have someone who you appoint as a point person when you're gone? Yep. I contacted my handyman because I just took a month, and now I'm in Idaho. My rentals are in Washington. But a month ago, I took a month with my brothers, and we traveled all over the country. 2 years ago, it was a month in Thailand. Before that, it was a month in Colombia. And next year, it's going to be 3 months to be determined where. So I still have email everywhere I go. I haven't found a place yet that I can't get to email somehow. So all my tenants know how to contact me with email. I have AT&T World Traveler, so I can get texts worldwide too. And my handyman, the only issue there you're going to have is time. If they're calling you at noon to be polite, it's going to be midnight where you're at or wherever. So I told my handyman, I might contact you in the next few weeks. Or I told him when I was taking this trip for the next month, I might contact you for something super simple that I could go handle myself. But it's because I'm out of town. And they're like, sure, I'll charge you $30 an hour to go do something simple you could have done yourself. So it was no problem. Retrainer, that's amazing advice on the balancing of your rental portfolio. Thank you. Yep. I have a video on my channel called Apocalypse Proof Investing. That's where I really go into, you protect your portfolio by choosing properties that are safe and attractive to the biggest group of people. So you look for multiple economic drivers. In my area, there's Boeing, Amazon, a base, a port, colleges, a hospital, large population near Tacoma. So depending on where you're at, you want multiple sources so that if a company closes down, you're not completely wiped out. I go for small multifamily because I wouldn't want 10 units altogether, because if that's drawing tenants from the same source and an Amazon terminal closes down and moves away, or there's a BRAC meeting and the base closes, you lose all 10 of them, right? So I have a duplex over there, a duplex over there, a fourplex, all 10 miles or more apart, so that they're drawing tenants from different economic drivers. I think there's several things in that video that can help you build a portfolio that, I seriously sleep like a baby. I never have to work again in my life. And not the kind of baby that wakes up every hour and a half screaming. I actually just sleep through the whole night, because work is completely optional, because I've developed a portfolio that is resistant to a pandemic, resistant to all the things that can go wrong. So, Chester, would you start negotiations on a property at a certain discount percentage on the first price, say 20% lower than the list price? So I don't usually make an under asking offer unless it's been on the market for a period of time. Because once you know your market, you know if it's a good deal or not. And if they overprice it, maybe you might send an under asking. But if it sits on the market for 2 weeks and they don't have a bunch of offers, that's where you start to look at offering less. In my area, things are on the MLS and off the MLS in hours, not days. And so speed is your friend. I want an offer in within an hour. So my lender and my agent know that when I text, and if I'm excited, it is a text, email, phone call. Get this offer done. Get that letter of pre-qualification sent. Because the sellers, as an investor, we know if I was ever going to sell a property, I would want it on the MLS. I would want it to sit for a long enough time to get all these offers in, so I can pick and choose and find the one most likely to close at the best price. That's us. A lot of sellers are like, I bought this for $200,000 10 years ago. Nobody's going to pay me $450,000 for this. Oh my God, somebody offered my asking price. Accept it. Don't let them pull it back. Like you don't know what's going on in their mind. Speed is what has gotten almost half my deals through speed. The other half I got by asking to be put in second position. So I make an offer, I get an answer saying they've already got an accepted offer because they were faster than you. And I go, great, put my offer in second position in case theirs falls through because of funding or the buyer backs out. I would like my offer to be there. And so I've gotten 3 deals that way. John, howdy. Caleb Boyd, there's a name. I know that name. How much were you making from W-2 job when you first started investing? So proud of this number. $17 an hour. I was working as a police officer in 2008, and I was doing okay. It was $48,000 a year with some overtime. So I was bringing home like $2,600 a month take home. Got laid off because of the recession, went to Oak Harbor Freight Lines and was making about $115,000 a year. So doubled my income to go drive a truck. Life is great. That company went on strike because if there's any Oak Harbor Freight Lines drivers here, listen very carefully. The drivers were morons. $115,000 a year, home every night, local job, great benefits. Why the hell was there a strike? What did you want the company to do? Give you free massages or something? So anyways, I went to a truck driving school just to fill up a month or two till the strike would end. And at the truck driving school, I was making $17 an hour. I got out of the Marines because they downsized after Desert Storm. I lost the law enforcement because of the recession. I lost Oak Harbor Freight Lines because of a strike. I was really tired of my sources of income being taken away by things outside of my control. It's $17 an hour with a bunch of bad debt that I didn't know about until they had divorced. I looked around, and that's when I started investing. That's why I moved into an apartment and rented out the house, because I didn't make enough to qualify for a loan. I had a bad debt to income ratio. 2 years later, with rental income from my house on my tax returns, I could buy a duplex, long leases. The lender would look at the other side of the duplex as rental income. So buying a duplex was going to cost me $300 a month in my debt to income. I was able to do that. So I wasn't making a lot when I started. It's not a requirement to make a bunch of money to earn a bunch of money in real estate later. With your, I lost it now. How much were you making? Okay, good, thanks. John, with your house hacking, how many bedrooms do your girls have? They are over 18 and moved out now. Happy 18th birthday, restraining order. That's how it works in my family. Now, my kids are super independent. I think if your kids are over 18 and they want to live at home, you've kind of messed up. I'm friendly with my kids, but they shouldn't want to live with me. When I started house hacking, my daughters each had their own room, and my son had gone to college. So there's 2 kids at home. And I'm super cheap. I'm living in a 4-plex right now. The other 3 units are rented out. I rent out the room in the unit that I'm at. I travel a lot, so there's always somebody there. And I don't know if you know this or not, but as an investor, I like money, and money comes from people renting your places. So that 4-plex is paying me $1,700 a month while I live there. But I really only have the one room that's mine. It's big. It's a 1,200 square foot place, and I got my own room, my own bathroom, and all that kind of stuff. But so I'm doing. There's 3 versions of house hacking that I'm doing right now. I used a 20% down instead of 25 for the 4-plex. Better interest rate because it's 30-year fixed, owner occupied. I've been there more than a year, so I can move out now. I'm renting out the other units, and I'm renting out the rooms in the unit that I'm in. Are you planning on doing another house hack? Absolutely. I made an offer earlier this year in Washington. There's a farm or a ranch called 6 Mile Ranch. It's 37 acres with 3 structures, 2 big houses and a smaller house that I would live in, and then 9 horse stalls. The income from the horse stalls and the 2 other houses, I would have been living on a 37-acre ranch for free, getting the appreciation on a $1.4 million property, gaining the principal pay down every month, using my VA loan to get in there with a 0 down payment because there's no limit on VA loans like there is with FHA. So I'm still actively looking for the next house hack. So it's addicting getting paid to live somewhere or living somewhere for free. I don't know that I'll ever stop. Million. If you use Section 8, do you care credit history? Yes, absolutely. You have to screen everybody the same. Reasons is a person could have a good credit or bad credit if it could affect utilities and other. So Low income housing is people who usually have financial problems and aren't making a lot. Section 8 is not low income housing. It's fixed income housing. Think disability, retired vet with disability, families with special need kids with stay-at-home parents. So I've got Section 8 tenants with an 830 credit score. My limit is 700 or higher no matter what. I've never looked at what somebody makes though, Section 8 or not. So I screen exactly the same. I don't screen based on a multiplier of the rent or how much somebody makes per month, because I know people making six figures that are late on every bill. And if you go based on income, you eliminate bartenders, cosmetologists, waitresses, waiters, anybody who makes their money primarily from tips, you kind of lose them. So I look at 700 or higher credit score, no evictions ever. Those are the only screening criteria that I have. And doing this, 10 years, never had a late or missing payment. People who work to get the credit score that high, protect it. And I'm all in Class C areas too, so I don't have super fancy houses. Those are my criteria when I advertise in Section 8. Exactly the same. Section 8. I think I might have missed something here. No, it was the same. Yeah, so it's 700 credit score and no evictions ever. I don't care if somebody was evicted in the 70s. If they've forced an owner to go through an eviction and it got on their record and they know that you can live for free, I don't want that person in my property. Angel, I've done conventional financing twice. I'm ready to use your FHA. Nice. Cool. If you're going for small multifamily, FHA is probably the best bet. If you're going for single family, conventional, even if you're doing 5% down versus 3.5, but with conventional, the PMI goes away automatically when you get up to 22% equity. With FHA, it's there forever. So unless your credit's really bad and your debt to income is really high, that's when FHA makes sense. If you have okay credit and you have okay debt to income, I recommend conventional for single family all the time. Law. How do you approach more than one financial institution to obtain pre-approval letter? If I approach 3 different banks, are they all going to pull my credit? There's 2 questions there. First, if they all pulled your credit, it wouldn't matter. When a lender pulls your credit, you get a 30-day window where multiple lenders of the same type can pull your credit, and there's no consecutive impact to your credit score. So you get one hit, then you can have 1,000 checks and they don't care. It doesn't impact you again. Here's my order of operations for lending. I go to a large bank like Wells Fargo or Bank of America. I get a pre-approval letter. I work with an agent at those banks that work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My Wells Fargo representative will answer a text at 10 o'clock on a Saturday, or I'm moving on to the next bank, because they have people in those positions that do work 24 hours a day. I get a pre-approval for how much I can borrow. And in the first couple of years, you will see that number change as your debt to income changes, your credit score changes, your history in your industry for work changes. But once you have some rental income, most lenders will just say, you do not have an upper cap. You can borrow as much as you want, conventional, as long as you can save the down payment. FHA will have limits based on your county. So I have that pre-approval letter. And so let's say I could borrow $500,000 and I find a place that's worth $400,000. I go to the lender and I say, I need a letter from you right now within 10 minutes that says I can borrow $400,000. You don't want the seller to know you can borrow $500,000, because then you don't have a strong negotiating stance. I want them to know I can borrow exactly what I've offered. So that letter goes through. If an offer is accepted, my lender knows I'm going to do this, and my lender is the one who educated me on how to do this. Then, now that I have an offer accepted, I go to my other lenders and I say, here's my offer from Wells Fargo in writing, the percentage, the APR, the buy down rate. This is what all the rates and fees are going to be. Can you beat it? If they can beat it, I say, thank you. I take their offer in writing back to the first lender to give them an opportunity to keep my business, because they did help me with that pre-approval letter. So if they have the pre-approval letter, if in the first 3 mortgages, Wells Fargo kept my business. It was the 4th one and 2 refinances where Fairway Mortgage was able to. Sorry, talking along messes with your voice. Where Fairway Mortgage was able to beat Wells Fargo. And now I've gone with them, except now it looks like Matt, the mortgage guy, his team has got better rates than Fairway. I'm still going to shop around. So that's the order of operations for lending. It sounds like a bunch of work, but it's less than 5 emails. Here's their offer. My offer was accepted. What is your offer? Back to the first lender. and then whoever you're going with. 5 emails. I was wrong. Okay. John, you mentioned last week you're now in the multi-millionaire bracket with Zuber. Curious, like your first million, did the answer to the question cause the first 2 million net worth or 2 mil equal? Did the answer to the question, what came first, 2 million net worth or 2 million in debt? I don't think I'm 2 million in debt. Yeah, it's 1.8 million in debt. Net worth passed the 2 million mark because of appreciation and principal pay down. I will pass. So I passed the two. So originally, $1 million in net worth and $1 million in debt happened in the same transaction. When I was buying the fourplex, that happened at the same time. I didn't know that till a year later when I was making a YouTube video on it, but that's what it was. So the first $1 million net worth took 8 years. The second $1 million net worth took a little over 2 years. And net worth means almost nothing. It's just when you fill out an income statement to a bank, because you're going to borrow the money for the next loan, you have to fill out appraised value of your properties or estimated value, your loan that you owe on each one. You list out all these things. So that's how I knew that I passed that, because I'm working with Matt, the mortgage guy, and I've got to list out, these are my assets. And I was like, oh, I have $2 million in net worth now. Doesn't mean anything, doesn't change anything. Makes you look attractive to the lender because I have a certain percentage. I'm less than 50% levered right now. I like to stay between 60 and 70% leverage. That way I've got a nice cushion so I can handle a dip in real estate. And if I had ever had to get out of it, I wouldn't be owing money like people in 2009 were. So I can handle those issues that happen. But I want as much leverage, because the beautiful thing to real estate is if you buy $100,000 in stocks and they go up 10%, you made $10,000 if you sell some. If you buy $100,000 worth of real estate, that's 20% down on a $500,000 asset. So if the house that's $500,000 goes up 10%, like the stocks went up 10%, you're gaining $50,000 in equity. It's so much better because of leverage. So I want to be levered, but not over levered. And I like that 60 to 70. And since I'm under 50% levered now, I'm taking money out of my single family house that's paid off to add to my money that I've saved up, because my goal, and I mentioned it earlier, is to buy my next property to be worth more than $1 million. So that's going to take at least $250,000 down. Dirkstar, relating to your last question, do you ever stop contributing to your CapEx fund? Yes. So when I get up to $30,000 in that account, which there is in there, the 15% I would normally set aside for repairs and maintenance and vacancy doesn't go into that, because that's full. I just keep it at 30. Anything above that needs to be making money. So I take that extra 15%. It doesn't come to me to go buy the next cool car or the next trip or anything like that. It doesn't add to the lifestyle funding. It goes into the investing account. So whenever the reserve account is full, the down payment, closing costs, and money for immediate repairs grows faster, because that extra 15% from rents that could be used to refill this is going into the investing account. So that's a good question. Mark, thanks so much. Really enjoy your practical advice. Thank you. The goal is to be informative, and try not to be too self-deprecative, but I'm fairly simple. So I have to present the information in a way that I would understand it. And so I try to be as simple as I can. Also, do you ever use cash flow to help more rapidly replenish your CapEx repairs vacancy fund if you have a big expenditure, or do you just wait for the 15%? I probably went faster at one point. It's like when I dropped down to the $200 and then I had the cash flow come in, and by the middle of February, I was back up to $10,000 or over $10,000. I think I took all extra cash flow and filled the reserve account until it hit 30. So it can be more. My savings rate is 100% of W-2 income, and over 60% of rental profit is saved for the next investment. That 15% is in that savings rate. So even though it's going to investment, it could go to replenish the reserve account. Do you buy in Class D neighborhoods, and how do you know a Class D for out-of-state properties. So unless you know the neighborhoods or you know somebody you trust who knows the neighborhoods, it would be hard to find a Class D neighborhood, except people probably would send you a bunch of deals for Class D. Brandon Turner has a really good article on how to tell Class A, B, and C, and D neighborhoods. I don't invest in Class D. Lived in Class D for a while when I was, here's personal information for everybody. When I was 8, my dad left, took my oldest brother with him. So I lost my brother and my dad at the same time. And my mom and I and my other brother were homeless. We stayed in a trailer that we parked behind someone else's house in a war zone. And then we upgraded to a trailer park, which was a war zone. And then we upgraded to another trailer park, which was a war zone. So having grown up that way, I don't ever want to own in those situations again. And not that, so our trailer parks were war zones. There are great trailer parks. I look for Class C. I like working class people who pay, my target goal when I first started investing was somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 rent. Now it's $1,500 to $2,000 rent because of wage inflation sets rents, and rents are going up. I don't want $3,000 rented units. If you have a Class A or a Class B house and it's empty for a while, that is a harder number for me to track with my income. And in an economic downturn, people in Class A and Class B areas will possibly move to Class C to save money. Hardly anybody moves to Class D to save money. You move to Class D because you don't have other options. So moving from A and B to C in an economic downturn means that if things go really bad, there will be more demand for my units. Doesn't mean I'll raise the rent a bunch because there are economic problems going on at the time, but more demand means less vacancy as well as higher rents when supply and demand make prices go up. Okay, Theo, need advice. I've got a tenant whose lease is up end of February, and I'd like to use binder strategy to increase rents. They're currently paying $1,395. Median rent is $1,800. When should I start discussion of the increase? Check locally. If you're in Seattle, Washington, you're already too late. You need 6 months notice. All the rest of Washington, you need 60 days. So check your area for how much notice you're supposed to do for a rent increase. But there's a way around that. I just used the binder method. I don't even think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe, on the tenant, the one that did the smallest rent increase of $200. And he could be watching. Sometimes my tenants find my YouTube channel, and I'm absolutely transparent. So if you're on here, thanks for asking for that rent increase. I appreciate it. And my expenses are basically covered because property taxes went up, expenses went up. His lease was up December 1st. So we just talked, it's in November, right? So rent went up $200. Can I do a rent increase for December? No. Here's behind the scenes in case he is watching. I get to look like a good guy. After we agreed to the rent increase, so we've added $200 a month to expenses. Then I go, great. How about December and January, we leave where it's at so that you can mentally prepare yourself for February 1st being that rent increase. In the moment, it seems like I'm just being a nice guy. I'm like, hey, thanks for the rent increase. I agree. That's what we'll go with. Let's push it out 90 days. So 3 months from now, that rent changes. It satisfies the legal requirement of 60 days. So yes, I'm doing that. There's a strategy. So if you get too close and then you find out that there's a delay that you're supposed to do because of your municipality rules or county or wherever you're at, you can write in the lease, these months are at the current amount. This is the month the rent goes up. I would usually give 60-day notice. I've never seen a tenant move out, and I've never seen a tenant ask for the rent to stay the same or go down. It always is that it goes up, but not quite to. So if you're in the 13, just saying, where did I lose the numbers? $1,395 and the medians as $1,800, and you can provide other rentals that are in that range, and probably some that are more. You're probably going to find some that are for rent for $1,400. Let your tenant know that when you find and verify that those are probably low income units. There are low income units that cost less. I point out, so you're welcome to go do a search yourself to see if you can find properties that match the ones I'm showing you. And if you find ones that cost low, they're probably low income. So if you qualify, great. But if you don't qualify and find out what low income is in your area, then those aren't available to you. So the real rent you would be paying is these ones that are at 18. If you're at 13, so basically 14, and it's an 18, I would anticipate 1650 is probably going to be where they hit you. They're going to come back and say, I could probably handle that, because they know as a business, your best bet would be for them to move out, you to do a rehab, and you to rent at higher than 18. But that's $5,000 to $7,000 out of your pocket to do that, and they are displaced, and you have to screen and place and train a new tenant, basically. Not train, but set expectations with those new tenants. That's a lot of work. If they raise it up to 16 or 1650, you got that increase, not quite to where you could be, but you're not spending $5,000 to $7,000 on a flip. So 2 months would be good. I would start then, at least. They've been there for 2 years, no rent increases. So that's another thing you point out. Hey, last year we didn't do a rent increase. This year, I just want to know what you think is fair and see what you get. And then let me know. Oh, in your analysis of shopping for the best mortgage rate and terms, how do you get the attention of lenders when they can sense that you will eventually go back to your first offer? Because I tell them I'm going to. And if a lender's not confident enough in their rates and fees to give me that, then I don't want to work with them. I want to work with lenders that know they've got the best product and best negotiation. And really what it was, my Wells Fargo lender, broker, agent, whatever they're called when they work at a bank and they handle mortgages, she told me, she said, I can't go to my boss and say, I really like Dion. I want to keep his business. Let's give him a better rate. She says she can't do that. But she can take another lender's offer in writing to her boss and say, this is the number we need to beat to keep this business. She educated me that this is what investors do. It's standard to the industry. So if you run across a lender that is like, yep, if you're going to shop rates, I don't want to work with you. Nice meeting you. So yeah, it's industry standard, and you want to work with the ones that are okay with it. Dan, does your 30K in reserves include tenant security deposits? If you're always renting them out, you'll always have security deposits. No. I know I have in my spreadsheet, I have one column is deposits, and that amount is in my savings account. It's in the same account, but it's not in that 30,000. I always mentally bracket out. I've got my 30 and deposits, because those aren't reserves. That is the tenant's money. So no, I don't do that. You probably could. You could probably get away with it. With it depends, So at 30,000, the deposits aren't included. But what if I was keeping, I quit my job, I lost my job, whatever. So I double my reserves to 60. Do I need the deposits in there? Depends on how much they are. I prefer to err on the side of caution and keep the bigger reserve there. That's a good question, though. I've actually never been hit with that one. Angel, for your binder strategy, do you make repairs and then present the binder? Yes. And it's not just to make repairs. So I have a video, tenant request rent increase, the binder strategy. It's like 20 minutes long, really breaks this down. I've got a 5-minute version that I send to people when they just want to know what the binder method is. But there's a 20-minute version that I did it as a class for the one rental at a time course. And then I made a copy for my content. If it's an existing tenant, so they're in place, I buy the property, so they're inherited tenants. I don't want to do the binder right away. I want to wait a couple months so that I can kind of vet them, right? Remember, make sure that they're going to pay on time. They're not going to call me for trivial things, and I don't get noise complaints. Make sure they're a good tenant, because I didn't get to screen them. In those 2 months, I'm going to replace the locks with coated locks. I'm going to replace exterior lights with LED motion sensor lights. I'm going to ask the tenants a very specific question. I usually do this during the inspection. If I'm there to walk through with them, I say, and I ask this of all my tenants, if you owned this place, what's the first thing you would change? And it's never been, I would add a bedroom, or I would convert the garage to a whatever. It's always been, I would love to have a screen door. So I spend $100 to have a handyman put in a screen door. Super happy tenant. Small repairs like that. And then 2 months later, I do the binder method. I've had the best luck because now they've been vetted. I know that I'm pretty confident they're going to be a good tenant. And I use the binder method. They know that I take care of the place. They know that I fixed up things. And I actually ask them, what do you want me to fix? So that's the order of operations for that. Ace. What's up? Howdy. Late. That's okay. It'll be on replay. I think we've been doing this 2 hours. And I think I literally started with, this is going to be a super short live. So Sorry for anybody who was here when we started and is here now, if you were expecting a short live. Is there a way to watch live on faster speeds? That would be, invent that. I think that's the next phase. If someone has 50,000 to invest in real estate, how would you advise to go about it? Market in Dallas, Fort Worth, I'm guessing, because I went to school in America and they don't teach us stuff. Class D duplexes, 200,000 range. So if you're investing at a distance and you're looking at other markets, then you're going to need the larger down payment, unless you go with creative financing or seller financing or something. If you can, you asked me what I would advise. I would advise what I know works. You have $50,000, house hack, 3.5% down, FHA on a small multifamily can get you a lot. Somebody with a brain. What's the math? You have 50,000. You'll need at least 10,000 in reserve. So you have 40,000 to put into down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs. Buy a rent ready place. You don't need maybe $1,000 for repairs. Closing costs, we'll say $10,000 just to be super conservative. It's probably going to be closer to $5,000. So you have $30,000 to invest. 3.5% with 30,000. You're buying way more than a $200,000 place. You live there for a year, rinse and repeat. Now you turn the first one into a rental. When I moved from the duplex, which it was costing me $300 a month, into the fourplex is cash flowing, and it's cash flowing well because I also rent out a room. It's not a lot. I think it's $575 or something for the room, because they also take care of the place when I'm not there. So it's not really just, if I was just renting the room, I'd get a lot more than that. But I'm making $1,700 there. That's great, right? I got to rent out the unit of the duplex that I moved out of. So it's not costing me $300 a month. It was making me $800 a month until this year. Now it's making me over $1,000 a month. So my cash flow improved by $2,500 by moving from one house hack to another. That would be my advice. It is the cheat code to wealth. It didn't take more work. It didn't cost me a large down payment. I had $20,000 for down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs to move into that duplex. I moved into a unit that the tenant had been really upset and moved out of. There were over 70 holes punched in the walls. It's tile, so the floor was good. It's only I haven't had to do flooring in that one when I moved in. I learned how to do drywall. I got about halfway through. I got good enough to go back and fix the starting ones I did. It doesn't take a lot of money to get into places like that. That would be my advice. With 50,000, if you're going to invest in a distance, I would look for a place where you have that tactical advantage, where you know somebody who you trust, who knows the neighborhoods, and it's hard to get lending less than 80,000 from a lender. So you're going to look for places that are 100,000, 120,000. So some parts of Ohio, I have a friend who's investing there. It's about the range she's investing in. So you have enough for 1 or 2 down payments to get those rentals, and then you just save the cash flow over the next couple of years to build up the next one. So there's a couple strategies that would work. I don't recommend flipping to build capital like everybody talks about, and I don't recommend the BRRRR method, because there's so many ways to mess those up when you don't have capital to recover and you haven't learned all the simple things like finding contractors, estimating the cost and time of a rehab, and after repair value. There's something really simple that a lot of people get wrong with after repair value. They think, I'm going to look at comps, and that's how much my lending is going to qualify me for. When you're buying a property, they have an actual offer in hand from a human being saying, I want to buy that property for this amount. Very likely that the appraisal with comps is going to hit that amount. With the BRRRR method, when you buy, rehab, rent out, refinance, repeat. My brain shut off right in the middle of that. It's like I've never said BRRRR before. When you refinance, they don't have a human being with an in-hand offer to buy the property for that amount. You are saying, based on comps, it's worth this amount. So the appraisers don't use current comps when they're doing a refinance. They use comps from 6 months ago. And in a place like Seattle, or where was it? It was like Sacramento or San Diego, where they had a 30% appreciation rate 6 months ago. 15% less on a $500,000 place is a $60,000 miss. So there's like all kinds of things you can do wrong with the flip and a BRRRR and all that kind of stuff. I would just go with buy and hold, house hack if you can, a place where the property price meets what your down payments can be, where you have a tactical advantage if you can't house hack. That would be my advice for that. DJ, thank you. Thank you for that. You've been here since the beginning. Good. And hopefully we've kept both of us awake. And I'm in a really uncomfortable chair. It's like a stool. That's just, anyway. Brian, if you included binder method, spreadsheet, and lease documents, that would be one heck of a book. Yeah, they'll definitely be in there. I'll put the caveat in that here's the lease I use. It's specific to Washington State, and I do adjust it for each property. I'll be doing that. I'll probably put in my spreadsheet with the caveat of this is kindergarten simple. Here's the properties. Here's the rents. Here's the, like just a couple columns. Here's a tab for expenses with here's the properties. Here's the receipt. Here's the tax. And here's a note saying what it was for. Like, that's it. And I've had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, I just bought a property and I like this. Please reach out if you want to. But they reach out and they say, hey, I just bought a property. I'm going to do the binder method next month. Can you show me an example? Don't overthink it. I call it the binder because it's physically a binder. The first page is the property. The next page is a map with all the places that are for rent around there. Each page after that is those places and what they rent for. That's it. Don't overthink it. Watch the 5-minute video or the 20-minute video to learn how to the nuance of the conversation and the way you structure the sentence. And at the end, there's a way to get them to commit to a 2-year lease instead of a 1-year lease if you like that the way I do. But the making of the binder, like that stage where you're like, okay, I've got the rental. I'm going to go talk to the people. I have to make this binder. You're nervous. It's the first time doing anything in real estate is terrifying. Second time, you could write a book. You could teach a class. That's the binder. So I recommend this right now. Make a binder. Get a $3 3-ring binder. Print out a property that you're looking at. Put it in the front. Go to apartments.com. Look at the map. Find rentals with the same number of bedrooms. First page. Then several of those rentals after that for what they would rent for. Physically make it and hold it in your hands. And it'll be easy when you actually go to do it in practicality. Thank you, Dan. I'm glad I'm doing these lives too. I love in the moment questions that this is helping me. I'm hoping it's helping somebody here, maybe 2 somebody's here. But when you do anything with teaching in mind, like anything that I'm doing with rentals, I look at it from the mind of, if I'm going to schedule this light replacement to get these motion sensor LED lights on the exterior, how would I teach somebody? Okay, so picking them from Lowe's or Home Depot, do you set up an account where your handyman can call you from Lowe's or Home Depot and you use your credit card to pay over the phone to use your military discount because it's tied to your phone number? Do you go buy it? Do you deliver it? Like setting up, when I'm doing this, I'm thinking of how would I present it to somebody? And that's to get lending, to screen tenants, to do the binder method. So getting questions just out of nowhere that goes into the subconscious and says, hey, pull the knowledge out right now without research. This is awesome for both sides of this camera. Angel, for tenants you vetted, do you raise the rents yearly? I normally in a typical year do 5% every other year. I give them a year where there's none, and then next year 5%. In 2020 and 2021, we're seeing rents increase between 20 to 40%, so that doesn't work. So this year, I did the binder method. I have 3 more tenants to go, but I did the binder with everybody. Actually, even with the tenants renting out the room in my 4-plex. And so they're not 575 anymore. They're 8 something. So I'm using the binder method across the board on all tenants because of how much rents went up. And it means, and this isn't like, hey, I can make more money. I mean, yeah, that's great. But property taxes are going to increase. Having the money to pay the handyman to go and fix things and not become a slumlord and say, oh, we could push that off. We don't need to fix that now. But I look forward to fixing stuff because it makes my asset better. And I'm using the money from the tenants. So proper rent increases that, as greedy as it sounds to go, I got the tenants to ask me for a rent increase. It's not going above the area average. They're still getting a good deal. And I take care of the places and I fix the things up, that anything that's pointed out or anything that I find. It just works for both sides. So I do raise the rents. And like I said, this year, binder method across the board. Josh, always love to listen to the whole way through. Like a Marvel movie, there may be a hidden scene. I don't know. If you're new to my content, at the end of most videos, it says, thank you for coming to my Dion Talk. The phone number you've tried has been disconnected. There's usually something after that. And so we're really far into this. So I'm going to share something I wasn't planning on. I'm making a video on how to run a business. So the beginning of this today was a 10-minute, this is how a business works. I'm going to make an actual video edited with visuals on how I took how I run a truck driving school and grew it to the largest CDL school in our state by like 1,200%, and how I grew a real estate portfolio to a 6-figure side hustle that takes me less than 2 hours a month, right? So this is going to be a video I want to share. It's going to be teaching, serious, like this is the methodology, this is the order that you do it in, this is all, so it's like that. So normally I like to have humor in my videos when I can. So at the end of that video, I'm going to say this at the beginning. At the end of this video, I'm going to share something silly. So only stay to the end of that video if you have a sense of humor. I'm going to share why I have been told I have a magic tongue. And it is not because I have the gift of gab, which I do. And it is not because of that dirty thing that Matt the lumberjack landlord would be thinking right now. So that'll be a joke at the end of that video, but it won't happen until after the outro end of the video. Because people come for information. If you stay to the end, that's where the funny stuff happens. Find out where I was here. Okay, if the property, okay, I didn't think you, okay, always love to listen. Hold on, okay, there we are. Didn't think you would be going this long. I have a lot to catch up on. Yeah, I'm definitely not trying to say, hey, I did a 3-hour one like Matt did. I'm just, I'm traveling. I'm in Idaho. So I have to get up as early tomorrow. So I'm sorry for anybody who's on the East Coast. I'm trying to start these as early as possible. I did 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time this time. In the last few weeks, I was doing a BiggerPockets boot camp, 3rd quarter, which was on Tuesdays. So I had to start after that, but that ended last week. So now I'm moving it up. So if even this is too late, I might try to move it up another hour going forward. Is it okay if the property doesn't cash flow until you move out? Yes, the cash, that's the version of house hacking that I think most of us start with won't cash flow. My duplex that I was in, I was paying $300 a month. So it did not cash flow until I moved out. I knew that going in, but I was living in an apartment paying $1,500 a month. $300 a month, it's a lot better for me than $1,500 a month. And it means I can add $1,200 to my savings account. But here was what it does for your freedom number. Let's say you could just move into the duplex and that was it. That was all you ever did. In order to make the $1,200 difference to live in the apartment, I had to earn over $1,500 because of taxes, Social Security. If you're in California, you have state tax, or in some other states, you have state tax. In Washington, we don't. But so I didn't have to make like $1,500 to be able to save the $1,200. So it's a massive impact to lower or eliminate your housing costs, even if it doesn't cash flow. When I'm running the numbers to look and see if a property is one I want to buy, I run the numbers as if it's after I've moved out and all the units are rented. That's what tells me if it's a good rental or not. So if while I'm living there, it costs me money, it probably cost me less than if I was living somewhere else where I wasn't house hacking. So another good question. Okay, Dan. Oh, they moved. Yeah. Get this man a drink. It's no kidding. My throat is, and the water's way over there. I could see it. Tampa or Clearwater, where the 30% appreciation. Okay, cool, nice. Yeah. So, and it was Seattle too. Seattle hit that. In the Tacoma surrounding area, we saw 16 to 24% appreciation, which is one of the reasons why I hit the 2 million in the double comma club. Larry, what was your house repairs, maintenance, and construction at the time you bought the second deal? What do you wish you knew then? So I had the house moved into an apartment, rented it out. Had a lot of repairs because I rented to somebody who trashed the place the first year. But like I said, cut that out of the memory. After that, everything's been great. Get systems in place and run it like a business from day one. That's what I didn't do. Moved into the duplex. My unit that I moved into had a lot of drywall work and then paint And I was way too creative on that. I did like accent walls with angled multiple colors. I was like learning how to paint. So I did way more than I should have. Looks great now though. Except that I moved out and I rented to a single guy who was a first sergeant in the Army, 27 years, and retired. And I thought, okay, I was a bachelor pad living there, and there was like a VR room set up, and it was, the kids had moved out, and I rented to this guy, and I thought, oh, it's gonna be another bachelor pad. It looks like my grandmother's house. Like everything is pristine, and there's like doilies on the side of the chairs, and I just never expected him to be that good of a tenant. Like he built a fence that hides the trash cans, and hope he stays there forever. Sorry, weird segue. What do I wish I knew then? I don't know if I would have been able to save the down payments fast enough, but something I've learned is, and I've said this before, and I said it earlier today, I wish my properties cost more. In the beginning, the first 3 duplexes I bought were all $300,000 or less, and I was trying to find the best, cheapest deal. When I bought the 4plex, it was about the same. It was $590,000. So 2 duplexes would be $600,000. So I was still under the $300,000, right? All of these have so far gotten about a 10% cash on cash return. Then I bought a triplex. Prices had gone up, interest rates had come down. I wouldn't have bought this. It was $175,000 a unit, so it was $525,000 to buy this triplex. More expensive than, by unit than everything else I'd bought. The return is like 17% out the gate before using the binder. My brain broke, and I was like, oh, I want to buy more expensive properties. So then I bought a duplex, $400,000, better than a 10% return. And so now I'm looking for, I wish early on I had a couple deals sooner, realized that the more expensive the place you look at, if the yield scales, so you've got to make sure that based on your payments and what the rents are going to be, that gap is where the percentage that you need. The more expensive the place, even a 10% return is a bigger number. Wish I knew that sooner. Dawn, tonight was really great, Dion. Thank you. If you're checking out, Dawn. Hi, that's the first time I've seen your name tonight. The binder method is great. I made my own version of it and had 0 issues. Ended up with a $350 per unit increase for the next 1.5 years. I think you did a post in the One Rental at a Time group where you pointed that out, and I really appreciate that. And I think I made a comment where that's really cool, because not only did you get that increase, but your tenants are happy. That's an amazing takeaway. Tenants are happy that their rent went up $350. Oh. What criteria do you give to your agent for a house search? Do you include stuff like must be Class C, must be 10% cash on cash? Agents don't know how to run a return. I have one that I work with that's an investor. He could probably do it, but that's too much work. I just want an auto search setup that says all small multifamily in my area. And originally it was up to just above what I can borrow. And that number went up as I could borrow more. Now it's all small multifamily in my footprint of 2 counties. I try to have my auto search be as vague as possible, because I want to screen properties out, and that little bit of extra work of screening them out is more important to me than the agent screening them out and me missing a deal that they wouldn't have thought was good that I found that was good. So that's the search criteria: small multifamily in this footprint. I do not search for short sales or foreclosures. I don't want to deal with the time commitment to short sale and foreclosures. I just so far haven't dealt with them. I didn't invest in the 2009, 2010. I wasn't buying properties when there was a whole bunch of foreclosures to choose from. Right now, it's just right off the MLS, regular sales. That's my criteria. I look for side-by-side unit. I look for bedroom count. I run the numbers for the yield, because I know the area average rents. And I do trust my agent that's doing it. He's investing. He's got several units himself. Okay. Julie, thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming. Survive it for beginner. Do you have a minimum price per door cash flow you look for besides 10%? No. Nope. 1% rule is flawed. Per door amount is flawed. I average 450 or better per door. So I think if the return got small enough or the number of doors got large enough, I only go up to 4 units because I like residential loan, 30-year fixed rate. Then the return might get down, and I don't do the BRRRR method, so I'm not doing a rehab and a refinance. So I probably have a minimum per door of $300 or $400, but I've just never looked at that metric. And I average $450 a door, but right now it's because I have a paid off single family house that is now rented for $2,200 a month, starting February 1st. It's $1,800 and something now. So I don't go per door, but it just works out where I'm making pretty good per door. And the 1% has a lot of flaws, so I don't use that either. Right. Okay, good. See, so somebody's going to stay to the end of the video and somebody's going to laugh. Ace, I would love to see a step-by-step video. If you could, oh, Lumberjack is here. You snuck in on me. Step-by-step for which part of the process? Because I'd love to make videos if it's a question, especially if I can do a step-by-step, because seeing each little step makes it easier for people to get through each phase of this. So if you could, please leave a comment, step-by-step on what? There's $1 per door goal. Nope. I think I must have missed some of these here. No. Minimum price per door. No. Okay. So I just missed the one line. Okay. Lumberjack. Not sorry enough. Sheesh. Way past your bedtime, but still not so worth it. Okay, good. Yes, it is past your bedtime. But your family went to bed, and that's why you're on the computer now. But, I mean, this, I think, is better content than we could be taking in on the computer regarding start time. When running your numbers, how do you factor in the taxes? Is that a percentage of the purchase price, or do you base off of details on the listing? The price gets me confused. The price on the listing when you're first starting out can kind of just give you a basis idea to look at, but everything that's on the listing is pro forma, whatever it's called, which translates as, and pardon the French, I'm going to use a technical professional term, made up bullshit. The seller can say the rents are this much, because then in that listing, there's a caveat somewhere always that says buyer's responsibility to verify information. And the problem with the taxes that are listed is that's at some point in the past, the property was sold for an amount. Over the years, that amount has increased slowly as the county tax assessor has estimated the value of the property. When you purchase the property, you are going to create a factual event today when that property closes of what that new property value is. So the taxes are going to be based off of your purchase. And it might be a quarter or two before that tax change happens, but it will happen. So contact your county and find out what metric they use for setting the taxes. What percent of the total value do they estimate the taxes to be? Once you learn how that works in your county, it's pretty easy to go on this amount. This is what my taxes will be. You can figure it out. And each state is totally different. For instance, I believe New Jersey is like 5,000 times more than everywhere else on the planet. I have a friend who invests there, and when he shows me his property taxes, it's scary. But here's the thing with property taxes. The landlord doesn't pay those. The tenant does. Every time property taxes go up, area average rents adjust. So knowing what those taxes are and knowing what your rents are tells you if a specific deal can be a good deal or a bad deal. And that's like Michael Zuber says, do the work, learn your area, that whatever area you're investing in, whether it's where you live or at a distance, to figure out how they factor their taxes, what the area average rents are. And if there's anything specific, if you're looking in another area, like in Washington State, I know what the insurances are. I'm helping a friend right now buy in Florida, and there is very different insurance rates based on certain years when the houses were built. They are not to code on the water level of where you need to be, because that state's basically underwater. They keep the ocean out somehow magically. So they've got really weird insurances. So you have to literally look up the address and contact an agent or an insurance company to get a quote to see what type of flood insurance does this specific address need. So that's one of the reasons why I don't suggest learning multiple markets, because the amount of information you need to know for that area starts to get pretty overwhelming. Okay. going to start saying, okay, when the numbers, okay. Need to go back and fix my drywall joints. I got really good at doing drywall in that unit. And since then, I've done it once at a friend's house. But now I know the scope of the job, and I know how much a handyman should do and the stages of it, and how when I talk to a tenant and say, hey, they're going to come and do drywall, it's going to, here's the first step, then they're going to do the mud, and then there's going to be some sanding, and then they're going to do orange peel or whatever the type of paint it is. So I can walk them through, and it sounds like I know what I'm doing. Did not know that when I first bought that property. Have you ever seriously considered a short-term rental? Yes. I haven't really done them because I have a good Section 8 tenant in my single family that's taking really good care of it. And then the rest of my units are all small multifamily. And I haven't had one go empty on both sides yet. And I wouldn't want a long-term tenant next to a short-term tenant, which is probably just me overthinking it. But I do have a triplex, which is a single family house and a duplex. One of them is an ADU, and I have no idea which one it is, because I think there was a house that they made a duplex that they added. I think it's from 1929. It's my oldest, weirdest looking property. Great tenants, they take care of it. If that single family house ever gets empty, or my Section 8 tenant ever moves out, my single family, I'm going to try short-term rental. It gets you about 3 times the rental amount, but it doubles your expenses, is what the math I've been seeing. So it's going to get me at least half again the rent as profit. So I'll definitely be doing short-term. One of the reasons I don't want short-term everywhere is I'm still in the 10 or less mortgages in my name, and lenders do want to see 3 months remaining on leases on the majority of my properties to include the rental income on the property I'm purchasing. Probably doesn't matter as much now, but in the back of my mind, I'm always trying to wait for lending fears to go through the roof and their criteria to tighten up, and I want to be able to make deals still happen. Knock it on. So thanks, Rachel. Knock it on. Yes, I did, and yes, you did comment. Okay, awesome. Ava, only stay to the very end if you have a sense of humor. Well, so sorry, I don't have any. So, and I am one of those guys. I think dad jokes are hilarious, so I'll sneak some in the video sometimes. I laugh, so it's good if someone else does, but the one thing I did learn is a lot of people watch YouTube with the app closed if you have YouTube Premium. So the videos where I talk to myself, or the videos where I talk to myself in past or different characters, are very confusing and hard to watch. So I don't know that I'll be doing a lot of those. I'm still going to do them because those are just fun to make. But I'm not going to do as many as I was there for a while, because I want people to be able to enjoy the content in the way that they watch it. Theo, where do you keep your reserves? High yield savings account, the bank, 0.002% interest. Where it starts to be a problem is as I'm saving the down payment for the next property, and I see literally a large amount of money sitting in the bank, to the point now where it's going to be in 2 banks because I'm past the FDIC insured amount. That starts to bother me, that I'm not getting a better return on that, but I'm going to put it in a property, get appreciation on 4 times what I invest. I'm going to get cash flow. I'm going to get principal pay down. So I'm not so much worried about where I'm keeping the money. If there were interest rate places where I can get 3 to 5%, sure, I might think about it. But even high yield interest rate accounts now are like 0.06%. Not enough to worry about. I've pointed out that I'm lazy, right? And I don't own any stocks. If somebody gave me stocks, I would sell them and put the money into real estate. How do you travel so much? So I do 1 month a year where I travel with my brother, who's completely retired. I'm turning that into 3 months. I'm traveling now in Idaho because I'm adding another campus for our truck driving school. This will be our 5th location. So I get to travel for work. My the other owners of the company, the ones who own 90%, I only own 10%. They just gave me 10% a few years ago. They live in Florida. They used to live in Arizona. So I'd go and see them. So we do face-to-face meetings. And my job running the truck driving school is to grow it to the point where I'm not needed. Because when you grow a business, you can either work on your business or in your business. If I'm training people or enrolling people, I'm not growing that business. So I'm traveling now to grow the campus. And the 3 months a year is because Technically, I've been financially free since 2018. I just have my job because I love what we do. I don't need the money. I don't need the job. I like helping the employees. I like making sure that there's enough work for them. I like helping the students because we focus on local jobs. Our company tagline is actually be home every night, so our students don't have to go over the road. So I feel like I get to fix life after life after life. Don't know that I'll ever actually quit, but I will start taking 3 months to do that. Theo, since you're having multiple lenders run loan estimates for you, do you have to provide all those financial docs to each one? No. So good question. You provide the documents to the first lender to get that letter of pre-qualification. Once they have that, they usually don't ask again until you get an offer accepted, and they're going to be the lender you go with. When I take their offer in writing to the other lenders to do that price comparison, I haven't ever had one run my credit or ask for tax documents. They have in writing. That's why I start with Wells Fargo or Bank of America. Their criteria is the most standardized. So when they have a letter of pre-qualification, the other lenders will usually take that at face value at the beginning to be able to tell me in writing, this is the interest rate. And it basically says, if everything proves true and your credit score is where you think it is and your debt to income ratio is where you think it is, this is what our rates would be. So I could take that back to the bank. At some point, once I've done my back and forth, I have picked the one I'm going to go with. Then that person's going to get all of those documents. So yes, I gave it to the bank to get the pre-qual. And if I go with someone else, they're not going to ask for everything. They're going to ask for everything multiple times. And then you give them everything and they'll call and they want something else. And it is always something new and something I've never heard of before, which is a good thing, right? I want those underwriters to make sure people are borrowing money who can, so we don't have another 2008. Retrainer. I am also on the East Coast as well. I'm the last one up for my family. So, man, like I said, I'm trying to get this to be earlier, but my goal is to do it during the evening because there are people who I think would enjoy this content but can't make the weekends. Whatever if you have church, you have family, you have whatever you're doing or whatever your schedule is. So I know Michael Zuber has Saturday morning. Matt the Lumberjack has pretty much all of Sunday. He said it was going to be 6 hours this weekend. And then I'm trying to do an evening. And this is the one that worked out best for me. Janet. Hello, Matt. Rip Surfer. Had a tenant clog pipes using flushable wipes. Contract says no wipes. Told them to pay the plumber. Like Epstein did not kill himself. The wipes did not flush themselves. Of course. First offense? Maybe. I would let it slide. Depends on the tenant's response, though. And then I would also consider their economic position. You are running a business, and they are the customer. The customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer. That is a motto at our company. The customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer. If you know money is super tight for them, and you know that a $200 or $300 bill is going to set them back their fun money for the next 3 or 4 months, but to you, it's going to impact how much you could have profited this month, yeah, I'll eat it. But I won't let it stay a habit, and I would, in writing, like an email, provide a thing saying, this one time I'm going to take this bill, but these are your flushable wipes. My handyman saw the flushable wipes in your bathroom, whatever. Or I'm going to split the bill with you this time. I'll take 50%, you take 50%, but going forward, they would be all your expense. Make it specific to the situation. Yeah. One of the really cool statements I got from one of the BiggerPockets episodes was treat your tenants like you only have one and treat your properties like you have 100. So you have systems in place to run the properties, but you treat your tenant like it's your only one, which to me means you can kind of run it case by case. If you have a property manager, it's usually going to be a lot more cut and dry. They just go, here's the rules, this is what you got to do, or here's the eviction. That's not me. Chester, pro forma, thank you. In a perfect world, that's how I remember pro forma. Nice. Okay. Yes, nice and quiet. Knock it on. Phoenix Realtors use elite pro forma to set the first prices. Drives you nuts. Yep. Autocorrect got me. Yep. Lol. How can one overcome the fear of first deal? How big is your fear that you have to work for the rest of your life? How big is your fear that you live on Social Security and have to be a Walmart door greeter, and I don't mean get to go out and take a job so that you can be a little more ambulatory and do stuff. I mean, you have to have a second income when you're 75. that fear made the first deal not so scary. Do the research. I would take a few months to learn a market. Listen to as many podcasts and audiobooks to where this comes in. It depends on how you read. That's how I am now because of the way I work. If you have the time to read books. Of course, one rental at a time, 15 conversations with real estate millionaires. Get that to that mindset. I would go through Scott Trench's book, Set for Life. And I don't remember the title, but Mindy Jensen and Scott Trench came out with a book earlier this year. I did a video review of it and gave a couple copies away. It was a really good breakdown of, here are the paths to financial freedom. Here is enough information about each one so that you know which one you want to pick. But my fear of the first deal is well outweighed by my fear of having to work forever. I remember most of my kids' lives growing up, I was the guy who said, I'm going to work until I die. I mean, single parent, one income, 3 kids, kept losing jobs. I thought work was going to be forever. So when I started thinking, and when it dawned on me that my debt to income was my barrier to get in, I thought, if I move into an apartment and I rent out the house, lenders are telling me if I have rental income on my tax returns for 2 years, then I can probably buy another place. I made a 2-year commitment. That's how much fear I had of working forever. I moved into an apartment, committing to do that for 2 years. To me, that was a little more stressful than, like, I was excited to start making deal offers. Perfectly explained on short term. Banks will be looking closely at rental unit stability. This will ensure you don't get a no answer from a bank. Nice. Thanks, Matt, your trainer. I'm not complaining. Glad I can be here this late. Thank you. Matthew. Good morning, one rental. I'm just kidding. You didn't want to go. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew, he's coming for your record, Lumberjacks. An hour live here. No, not so much. I think I picked the right chair because eventually it might just kill me and then this thing will be over. Matt, knock it on. Your residential lender just gave you a standing pre-approval letter. Took him 10 minutes to send to me. Nice to have. So a standing pre-approval letter is great. I would still, because that probably says, that you don't have a limit or that you have a certain amount. I would get a new pre-approval for the amount of the offer. So if I was able to borrow $1 million and I was going to offer 700,000, I would want a letter for 700,000. Unless it's really just a weird day and you can't get to your lender, then I would use the letter that you have. But I would still go for the one for the amount of that current offer. Julie, same here. Real estate all the way. Real estate is real. Yep. And it's what they call it. It's a race. It's just a marathon, not a sprint. So have that long mindset. In your tax return, rental income, does it matter if you try to offset the profit, or will bank want to see purely profit? No, they don't really care about profit as much because they will take out things like depreciation. You can have enough write-offs to where if you show a big loss, it can make you look like not a safe bet. So I make sure that my CPA knows I want to be as close to zero as possible with maybe a little bit of a loss so that I'm still attractive to the lenders. It doesn't do you any good to use less of your depreciation to keep you close to zero. I will use less of my write-offs when I need to. Because if you ever go to sell, it is assumed that you used all of the depreciation possible. So whatever depreciation recapture you're going to have is going to be a thing. There are ways around it. If it's a primary residence, you avoid up to $250,000 or $500 if you're married. You can 1031 exchange it. So there are ways around that, but your CPA can choose what write-offs to use. They don't really want to mess with the depreciation as much. They're just going to use it because it's assumed that you did anyways. Knock it on. Getting your contractor license to start building multifamilies for your own portfolio. It's going to be a great year for anyone willing to do the work. Yeah, especially if we figure out the supply chains. And I'm not sure where you live, knock it on, but supply chains should be fixed pretty much everywhere in the country except for California. And the supply chain problems in California aren't because of the supply chain issues. It is because of trucking regulations. And I think this is going to be a Three Amigos talk one day. We were talking about it. In California, your trucks can only be a certain age. They have to be a certain year or newer. And by 2034 or 2035, all vehicles have to be electric, and they don't make electric semis yet. So thousands of trucking companies can't operate there because their trucks are too old, and they can't buy new trucks because they're not going to commit to a purchase of a truck that can't be used longer than the time that they're going to be allowed to be in the state. So that's why there's such a big buildup of the ships in California, and there's not in Washington, in Florida. So until those regulations are fixed, that's not where I would want to be doing that. Okay. Cody, entering lumberjack, 3-hour period now. Knock it on. Yes, that's what for me. Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, that's what I have to do too. Is I've actually been told now that you don't have a limit. You can borrow as much as you can save the down payment for, but I still get that letter for the exact amount of the offer. Knock it on. So, Grip Surfer. Do you count money you set aside for vacancy repair and CapEx as income in tax returns? Yes, that is income. It will be a write-off when it's used for repairs, maintenance, or the expenses associated with a vacancy. So you pay taxes on it now, but you're going to be able to write off those expenses later. Individual letter. Absolutely. Rachel. Do you base your estimate of annual maintenance costs as a percentage of the purchase price or based on your personal experience owning a rental homes? Technically, it would be based on a percentage of gross rents. I set aside 10% of gross rents for the maintenance of the property. The more fancy, the more upscale Class A that rents for a bunch. If you have a broken countertop, it's going to cost a lot more to replace the nice countertop than a countertop in a C area. So maintenance kind of scales with the amount of rent. If I have a single family house rented out for $2,200, 10% of that, $220 gets set aside. If I have a duplex that's rented out for $1,800 and $1,800, that's $3,600. If I can do the math really quick. So $360 gets set aside. So don't even care, don't even know the value of the single family house, don't even care the value of the duplex. These are the gross rents. This is the amount set aside based on gross rents. So it kind of scales with the value of the property, with the number of units, and it's really simple. And those numbers matter to me when I'm buying a property because I want to make sure that it can stand on its own. Once they're part of a portfolio, the repairs and maintenance goes into that reserve fund. Once the reserve fund is full, that extra money then goes into the investing fund. A lot of that's come from experience and asking other people what they do and finding the simplest method. People can make it complicated. They'll do, I want this much per property, or I want this much I want 4% of my total value of the property. There's all kinds of ways to look at it. I just do, what is the gross rents? Here's 10% for repairs and maintenance. Here's 5% for vacancy. That's what I would set aside if my reserve balance was low. You live in Arizona, but you have rentals in Colorado. Nice. I was in Colorado not too long ago. I went down there for the Renaissance Fair. What would it take for you to almost literally hold someone's hand through their first deal, from finding the property, making the offer, getting it funded, bought, rented, etc., all the way through? How much can I share? I just did that for somebody. She's a good friend. I don't know that I would do it again, all the way through, hold their hands. But I'm my VA doctor. I went to her inspections. I helped her look at deals. So I will help people like that. I don't do it as a service. I don't do it as a coaching fee. I share my email. You can send me deals you want me to look at. I can tell you what I would do. I don't know your market. I don't know your area average rents. I don't know your vacancy rate, but I can tell you based on math and what I would look for. And I can look at an area and say, tell you what kind of economic drivers I would look for. Not much of a hand holder. Yeah. So what would be a reasonable rehab make ready costs? A percentage of the closing costs? No, I'm going to finish reading you out loud. Would you do to have a go, no go amount based on the itemized list following a walkthrough? Yield is annual profit divided by cost to acquire. Annual profit is the profit every month, after principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So you take all those out. That's your profit. Times 12 is your annual profit. Okay, so you know what your annual profit is. When you're looking at buying a property, the inspection report, if I've gotten to the point where I'm actually going to close on a deal, like I'm in my inspection period, I am satisfied with what I see, I want the inspector to go in. The things pointed out in that inspection report will give me an idea of what I'm going to spend. They'll tell me the age of the roof. They'll tell me the foundation issues. They'll tell me the age of the water heaters. If I'm not there for the walkthrough, I'll know if I need to replace all flooring or do paint, or I have a basic idea of what needs to be done. Kind of getting an estimate of those costs takes some exposure. The longer you do real estate, the more skills you have at that. That's why I recommend doing flipping and BRRRR way later, once you have the experience and cash flow to handle the mistakes you're going to make. So in the beginning, it's a rough estimate. But remember, your cost to acquire is not just the down payment and closing costs, but costs to make rent ready, immediate repairs. That is factored into that first equation. So if I looked at my fourplex and I paid $590,000, I knew it needed a roof. I actually had to insure it. That insurance company called me back a month later, said, "We're not insuring you because your roof is too old." I said, "Well, it's actually been replaced since you guys look." I bought it knowing it was going to need a roof. In my equation to get my return, I included the $15,000 to replace that roof. I think I estimated it at 20 because it was a fourplex and I had only done my single family before then. So I tripled the amount that it had cost, and it was 15. So my return was based on replacing a roof, closing costs, immediate repairs. I have pulled out of a deal before where the inspection found 2 chimneys that needed to be redacted because they were cracking. The joists were rotted because there was a leak on one side. Both sliding glass doors needed to be done. It was a bunch of work. It was tens of thousands of dollars of work. Luckily on that purchase, this is on my channel on glad I spent $1,100 or something on a property I didn't buy, because the appraisal came in $50,000 low. The inspection pointed out a bunch of stuff. So it killed the yield. And so the yield wasn't there. I pulled out of the deal. Mark on demand, pursuing financial freedom. I like your name. I went with financial freedom too. Does anybody know why I went with Dion Talk Financial Freedom instead of Dion Talk Financial Independence? If you have a guess, put it in the comments. I will explain before we're done. I'm thinking of asking around in groups to see if I can take on an apprenticeship-like situation with an experienced flipper in my area. Do you believe that could help me learn the ropes as a flipper? Yes, I don't know if I would call it an apprenticeship program. I think it would be, that might be an internship maybe, because an apprenticeship is paid. If you're trying to work with them to learn and that's what you're getting away from it, asking for an internship and saying, "Hey, I just want to work with you. I could be your gopher. I can help schedule things. I can meet people to let people in or whatever, so you can learn the process." That's probably an easier way to get in with that. And if it's an experienced flipper, they might have use for that. Doesn't sound like a bad way to do it. I know that Brandon Turner and David Green had a program where service members could go as part of the Skill Bridge program to learn how to do real estate and work for them for a few months. I don't know how any of that worked for them. I just know it was a program they were offering for a while. How do I find a well-priced plumber? Before you have a plumbing issue, I would call the plumbers in your area and get quotes on what their hourly rates are, what their emergency call-outs are, what their on-hour schedule call-outs are, compare them, and then read reviews, because best price doesn't always mean best value. I would do that before you have a problem, because when you have a tenant freaking out because there's a leak at 10 o'clock at night, that's not the time to be calling a bunch of places trying to get the best price. During business hours, talk to their front office, find out as many of that, and make a comparison of the options you have in your area. There is a company, and I don't remember its name, but they charge $5 a month per unit, and they'll handle any plumbing issue you ever have. It's like an insurance policy. I don't have warranties or insurance policies like that, but I just know that was a thing. I forget the name of the company, though. Survive it for a beginner. What would you set the cap at for CapEx and maintenance savings? I have one single family house and am not sure how much reserves to keep. When I had 7 units or less, so 1 unit or 6 units, I kept $10,000. It's enough to replace a roof. It's enough to handle the mortgage for several months if something goes wrong. It's enough to replace flooring and paint on a tenant flip. So you can make it as simple as you want. You could say it's a percentage value of the rent, or it's a percentage value of the property. I just 7 units or less, it was 10,000. Once I went above 7,000, 7 units, I went to 30,000, because Murphy's law is anything can go wrong. Murphy's fourth corollary is if any sequence of events can go wrong, they will, and in the worst possible order. So as you add more units, more things can go wrong, and they will happen at the same time in the worst order. So that reserve scaled with the size of the portfolio. I kept it simple, 10, 30. If I ever quit my job, I would double it. And now that my next purchase is probably going to put me around 20, I might go to 40. I might go to 50. I haven't decided yet. Larry, at what point will you consider going large multifam when you hit 10 mortgages? I don't know that I'm ever going to. I never say never. I just don't know that I'm ever going to. I like 30-year fixed rate debt. Michael Zuber found 30-year fixed rate debt on a commercial loan. So if I can work out that magic someday, I might. I like small multifamily. I like spread out. I like multiple sources of tenants so that there's not a lot of tenants in one area. I wouldn't want an 8-plex or a 10-plex. Too many people that's coming from one area. So if one company closes down, it's a big place to try to get rid of. I'm probably going to get to 10 mortgages, take all the cash flow and pay one off, and then buy another one. Or at that point, it takes me about $30,000 a year to live, right? And I'm house hacking, so that's even a bunch. If I had a mortgage, it would take me $30,000. I don't have a mortgage. I'm being paid to live there, so it takes me like that, right? So my cash flow now for this last year is going to be $111,000. It was $103,000 until the binder methods of this year. So $111,000, 3 times what it takes me to live, right? At some point, I'll probably have enough money to actually go on a date someday. I doubt it, but if I really saved up, I could probably do that. Then I might want more income. But how many properties do I need? Because my goal was financial freedom. What's really cool with working with Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Michael Zuber is they've built these huge machines that they're continuing to grow. And like I said earlier, steel sharpens steel. I stole that from Matt. I'm considering going bigger and recycling capital, things I wasn't doing before. So I appreciate working with them and just having friends like that. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So I hang out with them every week to make sure I can be a little more like them. So I don't know that I'll ever go commercial. We'll see. Justin pulled his message back. Cool. Rip Surfer. Sorry if I missed it. What percentage yield do you look for? And this is from Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time. I would learn your area average and find out what is a normal deal in your area and then shoot for better than that. In my area 3-4 years ago, it wasn't too hard to find 7 or 8% yield. So I shot for a 10. It's harder now to find that. And so I've looked at deals that were 8 or 9% yield in my area and went for them. And then the binder method put them above 10. So it worked out anyways. But a few percent better than your area. If the yield in your area is like 1 or 2%, I don't know that I would look for a 4 or 5%. At that point, you might be better off investing in a REIT with a 7% average return, or investing in stocks at some point where they don't have the benefits that real estate does. So I wouldn't do that. But if you're looking for just return, dividend stocks, if you find the right stocks, can pay better than that 3 or 4% yield. So for me, I look for 10%. It's better than my area average, and only because my area average right now seems to be like 5 to 7%. So I'm still going above that. JD, independence is forever, and it is an undescribable amount of mental peace knowing that independence and financial freedom happen. Was that your guess as to why I went with financial freedom instead of financial independence? Because technically, I have a video on the difference between financial freedom and financial independence. Independence means you don't have to work ever again. Financial freedom is you can spend money without ever thinking of the amount. You could buy the Lamborghini that Matt's going to buy, the lumberjack landlord. You could buy, that's financial freedom. I haven't reached financial freedom yet. I'm financially independent. I'll never have to work again, but I can't just go out and buy a yacht, right? I went with financial freedom, and no kidding, it's because it fits. The YouTube channel will let me put Dion Talk financial freedom. If I do financial independence, it cuts off the last few letters. So if you ever make a YouTube channel, you want to make sure the length of your name is the number of characters that exists in a phone when it's showing the thumbnails. So it actually had nothing to do with real estate or financial. It was just what fit. And actually, the original name of the channel was going to be 10 years to FI. And that's when I realized how few people know what FI means. Even investors were asking me, what's that mean? Financial independence, the FIRE community. I believe in financial independence and financial freedom. The retire early part, I don't see it. I could have done it in 2018. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, could have retired probably 10 years ago. Both of us are still working. Both of us like our jobs for now. Internship is more so what I meant. Yep, correct. Cool. Awesome. Chester, financial freedom after financial independence work. What is it? Financial independence work is optional, but not necessary. Yep. Justin, do you use an LLC for your rental property? I do not use an LLC for a rental property. There are times it makes sense to have an LLC. If you have partners, if you're using commercial lending or hard money, the lenders will usually require it. I am going to make a video when I hit 10,000 subscribers that explains why I do not use an LLC. And if you're a new investor, there's absolutely no benefit. It doesn't give you asset protection. It doesn't give you asset separation from other assets. It doesn't give you any tax benefits. And that video will explain that. The reason I'm waiting until I hit 10,000 is because it's going to be a rant where I'm very upset with all of the investors who have new investors convinced they need an LLC, and that stops a lot of new investors in their tracks. So no, I don't use an LLC. And actually, when we do the Three Amigos with me and Matt and Mike, Michael Zuber on his channel is very careful never to give advice. So I'm not giving legal advice and saying what you should do. I'm saying what I did. I do not use an LLC. I have a long list of reasons. Higher interest rates, higher insurance costs, can't represent yourself if you go to court, doesn't give you asset protection, added expenses to create and maintain them. Like this list of reasons why to have them, and the only list, there's 3 reasons why you should have an LLC. Do you have partners? It'll protect you from someone else's mistake. Do you need commercial or hard money? Lending is a reason to have an LLC. Some people will have an LLC because they don't want the tenants to know they're the owner. So I guess there's a 4th that it can exist for. But there's pretty much everybody has Google, and you can figure out who the owner is pretty fast. So thanks for asking that, Justin. That question does come up a lot. I'm in the BiggerPockets Real Estate Rookie and official group, and it comes up all the time. I literally have a cut and paste answer that I put as to why I don't have an LLC. I can actually put that in the chat if you guys want. Knock it on. You're thinking of, once you get to 10 residential loans, have Stephen Dow do a portfolio loan and then start over with residential loans. That is a brilliant idea. I might have to do some research and figure out how that would work. That would be a good one. Yeah. Best way to find a fourplex. Driving for dollars is a good one, because some people are convinced that small multifamily are in pockets or they're in areas. And yes, there are divisions where they were developed by a contractor where that's what's on there. All my deals I find off the MLS. I have at least 3 agents with auto searches set up looking for a small multifamily in my area. My footprint that I search in. Wholesalers, you can go to local REI meetup groups and look for wholesalers. You can go on the BiggerPockets forums and look for turnkey providers for areas. And there's several different ways to find a fourplex. For me, it's worked best. MLS, agents, multiple searches. They all search different. Even if I was a real estate agent with full access to the MLS, I would have agents with auto searches set up, sending me what I'm looking for. DJ, yes, that was your guess on the difference. Awesome. Tony Carr, hey, good to see you. Did you make it to the boot camp last night, or did you watch the replay? Good answer on cash, rate of return. You had the same question and situation. Awesome, thanks. That's why I'm glad when people ask questions. Guarantee somebody else is thinking the same thing. Long beard. Does a city's population go into the account when looking for deals? I live in a city with a population of 8K, but growing rapidly. It does. So growth of population is good. I wouldn't want to be in a place that's shrinking. And so normally when I list out my criteria, I want small multifamily so I start with math, 10% yield, right? Or better. Small multifamily, side-by-side units, 2 bedrooms and a garage, so more space, washer dryer hookups in each unit, and then 10 miles away from my other property. So I look for all those things, right? In the boot camp last night, at the end, I did a review. I went to my emails and I showed them that I had 8,300 unread emails. So I've got some catching up to do. But I went through until one of my real estate agents' auto searches popped up, and I looked at it and I pulled up the property, and I thought it was a duplex. It was $399,000. I said, okay, we're going to run the numbers on this duplex. And I thought, it might be an okay deal. I pull into it. It's a triplex. There's a third unit. And yeah, it's a 1-bedroom, 1 bath, and then 2-bedroom, 1, 2, 1. So it's pretty much what I'm looking for, except it was an over under, right? So it doesn't hit my criteria. The return was over 19%. The area is where I want. It's right. It's not far from my single family house, but it's far enough from my others to where they're diversified. It hit on everything so strong that even though it was over under, I still, during the boot camp, did a voice text to my agent saying, I want to make an asking price offer with $10,000 earnest, 25% down conventional, and submitted that offer. I haven't heard back yet. So if population, for me, I like a population of at least 100,000. It's one of the criteria I list, right? That's a criteria. If there's 3 economic drivers and population is growing and that meets my other criteria, but the population is small, I would absolutely make the offer. It's not that I want I would like all of my criteria to match, but if some of them are strong enough to justify the deal, then the other ones I can kind of do away with, if that makes sense. What does your asset protection structure look like? Tim Oxis Sugar. Super. Tim. Tell me how to say that. Give me a phonetic. Tim Oxis Super. Okay. Asset protection comes in 3 forms. We talked about this a little bit earlier, so here's a quick recap. Insurance, $300,000 in slip fall coverage and full replacement value on the properties for each property. The second thing is leverage. The bank is in first position. So if I'm ever sued, they're not going to take the property because the bank's in first position. And the third thing is actually fix things. Do scheduled walkthroughs, listen to tenants when they make complaints, check the banisters, check the decks, check the stairs, check anything that could be a safety issue to make sure, check the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, make sure they got new batteries, all those things you can be proactive with. That's what my asset protection looks like. And it was probably because of the LLC question, because an LLC doesn't provide you with any asset protection. First thing you're going to be told when you go to court is list out all of your assets. And you have to list out any LLC that's in your name. And if you don't, it's perjury. And any attorney who's not asleep is going to be able to ask the judge to pierce the veil. And every LLC that you are the sole owner, or you and your wife are the sole owners of, is your asset. It doesn't divide the assets. It's called piercing the veil. And it's more and more common now. So Chester, yes, please. You hear about LLC and umbrellas. So, thank you. My memory is my memory. Insurance is that coverage on each property, right? I also have a $2 million insurance policy that I pay $550 a year for, to where if any of the slip fall damage suits go above the $300,000 threshold on the property, then the umbrella policy kicks in. So each property is insured with its own homeowner's policy. I'm insured with an umbrella, but each property is listed on it. So that's the asset protection. Thank you for bringing that up, because I mentioned it earlier, somehow skipped it this time. Deal. I can't wait for the LLC video. I want to keep seeing all these. I know so many people want you to have an LLC. It's like the CPAs and attorneys that get paid to set up and maintain LLCs will pitch how great they are to everybody. Meet Kevin has a couple of great videos where having an LLC is what screwed him over. Okay, let me see if I can get the LLC answer in chat really quick. And I'll try to be as quick as possible. No, I can't find it. So that's my seller financing letter. Should put that in the chat. Email sent for my rents. Here's what I suggested. Why am I not finding it? Huh. I can't find it. I will put it as a comment and I will pin it after this uploads. I have too many copy and paste answers, apparently. Why am I not seeing it? Answer. Here it is. Sorry that took me so long. Well, that's not it. I'm going to have to just apologize and put it as I'll pin a comment later with the LLC there. Cool. You were at the boot camp. Awesome. You're just north of Seattle. You're getting so many offers from realtors with 10 to 40 unit properties. I find that interesting. To make sure, what role does the trust play in your structure? So trust for me, it doesn't really have current tax benefits for me as much as when my kids inherit the properties, then they're going to be members of the trust. So there isn't an inheritance tax. And right now, federally, I think the inheritance tax is anything 5 million or less. Doesn't have an impact. Washington Republic has some weird rule that I'll have to look up. But the trust eliminates all that to where then they just become the members of the trust. So that's the benefit of trust, is it's for the people who inherit your assets. Lane. Okay, so 3 hours and 20 minutes. One last couple minutes, questions, in case there's any questions you guys want to throw at me. I appreciate everybody that came and hung out. I'm going to look one more time to see if I can find that reasons why. I wish I could share my screen. I don't see. Here we go. Oh, so many characters. Oh, I did not know they had a character limit here. So I guess that won't happen. Crap. If I can do this. I will email that to anybody who reaches out to me. Put 200 characters in a comment, and that had 1,200. So is a trust where the stepped-up basis plays a role for inheritance purposes. So the stepped-up basis plays a role without a trust. With a trust, there is no taxable event when you just leave the trust and the people who are in it become the new owners. Verify all this with a CPA. It's just me going off of why they told me I needed a trust. I do this every Tuesday, and my goal is to do it a little bit sooner. So I start at 5 p.m. Pacific this time. I'm going to try for 4 next week. We'll see how that goes. So I want to say thank you for everybody who hung out. I appreciate it. Hopefully the questions will help somebody today, maybe 2 somebodies. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my After Hours Dion Talk.